Hey guys, welcome to The Grey Escape. I'm Natalie Gray and I'll be back right after this. We have a great episode for you today. Your ears are in for a feast. They're going to practically fall off your head because it's such mind-bending information, and I'm not exaggerating. But first, if you have money to send overseas, visit thegreyescape.com/cash, where you can see the results of my research, how you can get the best international money transfers and currency conversions, and you'll get a free international money transfer worth up to £500 or your currency equivalent for free. You'll get it for free just for listening to this show. That's thegreyescape.com/cash. All right. Today's guest is documentary filmmaker John K. Webster. Now, last episode, we had his friend and producing partner, James Russell. Those guys worked on the film Resonance Beings of Frequency together. And that was a really juicy episode all about cellular technology and the impact on our health, the connection with cancer. So if you haven't heard that episode, definitely check it out because it's really juicy. Oh, but this is going to give it a run for its money. I don't even want to take up much time right now because it's a long one. This, I thought about breaking it up, but I thought let's just give you guys the full meal deal. This is a buffet for the brain. So without further ado, strap down your consciousness, as it's just gonna leave the orbit with this episode. Here he is, writer, producer, filmmaker, John K. Webster. Thank you for the coffee. It's
That's
awesome.
Okay. We've got plenty more if you need any more.
Bonus points for anyone serving coffee on arrival. So you're a professional filmmaker and you're obviously the film Resonance, Beings of Frequency. That's how I became a fan of your work. Just a magnificent documentary. And just watched Strawman, and I'm just really curious where the passion comes from to seek out a topic like Strawman. Was it from personal experience?
It was... I can root it back to I was watching... I'd learnt the stuff anyway. I learnt a lot of stuff about freedom and about the ideas of freedom and about human beings. Like I said to you earlier, that a lot of people, I think, don't realize that in essence, this will upset the religious people, but we're just talking monkeys. And and what we're doing, everything that we do is just here to keep us entertained, and we create the society. It all comes from the mind of man. Everything that we do, the money, the society, the government, and everything like this. So it's all a construct. It's all an illusion in a sense, right? It doesn't really exist. It just exists because we allow it to exist. Like money. Money used to be backed by gold or silver, and now it's backed by nothing. It's just backed by the belief that it has value. So what started happening was that I started noticing there's a lot of articles in the news about suicide, about especially men in the 50s, they were committing suicide because after the financial downturn in 2007,
right,
a lot of people were losing their businesses and a lot of people were affected by it, and what they were doing was going out and killing themselves. They were going out and committing suicide. Like you saw in the documentary, there's one bit where they're on the phone saying, you're still going to come and see us. And they go, oh, we were going to, but the guy's just hung himself. The last guy's just, killed himself. And I thought to myself, this is unbelievable. This is a game. So the way I see money in the world is like Monopoly. Like it's a game. You're in this game and they go, well, you don't have to play it because if you don't play it, nothing happens to you. You can't go to prison for your own money. There's no laws that say that if you owe someone money, you go to prison. You can go to prison for fraud, but that's a crime. If I borrow money from a bank, if I owe tax to the government, you can never go to prison for these things. But what they do is they hide it in such complexities, like the tax thing. You're always seeing stories of went to prison for not paying tax, went to prison for doing this and doing that. I thought you could go to prison. No. Tax avoidance and tax evasion are fraud. right? That fraud is a crime. So if you try and cook the books, if you try and go, this is how much money I had, this is and you try and cook that, that's a crime, right? You're covering up. Now, all you have to do legally is submit your tax returns, right? Because it's all about balancing and checking books, yeah, like anything. So all you got to do is submit your tax return. That's that part done. When that part's done, your whole legal requirement is done. The paying back of the money now becomes like any debt. They can only chase that debt any other way, i.e. through the courts or with bailiffs or anything like that. But as we'll learn, hopefully when we go on, they have no power when you know what you're talking about and you know what you're doing. So yes, the biggest scam on that is everyone reads these articles and they think that people are going to prison for not paying their tax. Simply no. They're going to prison for fraud.
Do you know if it's the same in America?
Exactly the same in America.
Wow.
America.
Wow. I was sure you could go to prison for not paying your taxes.
We are common law. So the UK, Canada, America, New Zealand, Australia, I think India, and a couple of other countries are common law. Common law means that the legal system and, well, it doesn't mean this, but an easy way to understand it is the legal system and the lawful system are two completely different entities, right? So the legal system is to deal with contracts, people owing money, anything you can think about on that side, anything where a crime has not been committed. So what I mean by that is that the law, the actual law is, and this is the same in America and Britain, is harm, injury, or loss to another human being. And being fair in your contracts. You can add that one on the end as well, right? If you break any of these, this is when you can be arrested. This is when you can go to prison. This is that's the only things you can go to prison for. And we all understand this. You can't hit anybody. You can't beat anybody up. You can't rape anybody. You can't steal. You can't do these things. These are committing crimes against a human being. There is an injured party, and that party can make a claim. Now, none of us can circumnavigate the law. If you break the law, collar gets felt, you're done. Right? The legal system is completely different. Right? The legal system is meant for businesses, not for people, for businesses. But what they did was, a very long time ago, they decided that they could turn all human beings into businesses. Now, again, it's been a couple of years since the documentaries, so the researchers there, I think it was Germany and Hitler were the first people to kind of implement this. I might be wrong there, but I think it was them. They then started saying that with the birth certificate, and when you register that birth certificate, you register the child as effectively a business, as a corporation, as a company. And the reason why you do that is, like I said, is that the legal system is set up for businesses and not for people. The law is for people, for human beings. So what they had to do was get human beings they want human beings to pay tax. They want human beings to be part of the legal system. And so what they did was they like I said, at your birth, they registered you, turned you into a business. So there's now two of you. And this is essentially what the Strawman is. So the film's called Strawman the Nature of the Cage. And so there's the human you, and this can be whatever you want. You can be whoever you want. You can be, I don't know, Bobby Brown. You can be whoever you want to be, right? That's down to you. No one can tell you what you can and cannot be. And then you've got the legal you, which is the business, the corporation, right? And again, the reason why this is done is so that if you do owe money to a bank, they can get you in court, right? And so they couldn't do that if they hadn't turned you into a business, because a human being has no right being in a court dealing with legal systems. Wow. Am I making sense so far? Yeah. And so what they do is they send you a letter out, or they send a correspondence out with what looks like your name on it. So it says Mr. John Webster, right? And it will be in two variations, or it will be in both the same. It will have Mr. at the beginning, or it will be in block capitals, right? Whenever you write your name with Mr., right, that's or Mrs. or Miss, that's referencing to the legal fiction, which is the Strawman, which is the corporation that I just told you about, the company which was formed when you were a child. So whenever you get anything that says Mr. or is in block capitals, that's a legal thing. And this can be proven very easily, by pulling out anything in your wallet, like your cards or your driver's license. So if you look here, this is my driver's license. There's no Mr. there, but it's all in block capital letters. Yeah? You see that?
It
right?
is, yeah.
So when it's not, this one's in block capital and it has Mr. in front of it. Right.
Okay.
So the Mr. part from my research, is basically the same as putting LTD or PLC or anything else at the end of a name. It donates the company, right? Your name in block capital letters, you never ever spell your name in block capital letters, ever. The only time your name should be in block capitals is on your gravestone.
Oh
right?
my gosh.
Which, so again, it's a very horrible thing where basically that your name written like that is actually you dead. And it all comes back, again, we're moving into areas that can't be proven outright. You can't go to a book and go, that's what it says, because it's so woven and hidden. There is an academia documentary, which is about a document, which is about 800 pages, which definitively, I've read it, it definitively proves it, that what we're saying here is correct and the reason why it's done. And obviously, so this is done, it's a scam. So when this letter, say you owe money to the bank and the bank then say, all right, we're going to take you to court, and then they send you this court letter, you open it up and go, Mr. John Webster, that's me. I will go to court. Now what this is a thing they kind of call joinder. I wouldn't say it's exactly the right word for it, but what it's done is that this letter comes through and it's looking for somebody. It's looking for a business called Mr. John Webster, right? I pick it up, and because I know no difference, I go, oh, Mr. John Webster, that's me. I better go to court.
Right.
Now, what I'm doing is no different to, my company's called Patient Zero Productions Limited. It's no different than if it got taken to court, the human being has to represent it, yeah? Because companies don't exist. They're not real. They're dead in a sense. Yeah, that's why a lot of people say that all company names are in block capitals. And even the word, and this has been argued beyond, the only thing in the documentary that ever got argued was the word corporation, because the word corp can mean body, dead body, and or court. And oration can be translated as to speak.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you could say the word means dead speak. Now, many people have argued this with me. Many people say I'm getting the grammar wrong and the terminology wrong with the word. But I have gone back and analyzed this word. I've gone and looked at it from all angles. And I won't go into it too deeply, but what I come up with there is the actual interpretation would probably be more like giving power of speech to something which is dead. All right, which would make sense because a company is dead. It's not alive, and this is what we've got to remember. So if a company takes you to court, it's not a human being taking you to court; it's a company. So when you start looking at it on that level, you go, wait a minute, how can something that doesn't exist, that it doesn't have a human entity behind it, right? And what they send is a third party to court. They send a third party representing this fictional company because it needs so it takes us right back to what we've just done. So we've been called to court. The Mr. John Webster cannot go because it doesn't exist. It's not real, right? It's a company, a corporation like Patient Zero Productions made up. They need a human being to come and represent it. So they do it through trickery. So when you get into court, they go, stand up, everyone stands up, everyone sits down. And this is to hand over power in essence. I try and use the simpler words, but power. So when someone comes in and says, stand up, and you do what they say, and then they go, sit down, and you do what they say, you're now under their control. You've now submitted to their control, yeah? And then what they'll do is they'll go, are you Mr. John Webster from your address and your date of birth? And you go, yes. And as soon as you say that is, and I forgot the name of it, but I was called joinder. In court, that basically says you are is. So you are the thing that you just said you are, you have become now in court, yeah? And so now they can levy or do all these things and fine you and do all that, in court. So the documentary, in a sense, the first part of it was looking at the straw man, looking at the legal fiction, looking at the possibility that what I've just explained to you is true. And so to roundabout way to come back to your question is that, yes, so suicide was the reason. I saw many people committing suicide, students committing suicide, and it just hurt me. Yeah. And I thought, if I can do something, and this is why, unlike Resonance, we distributed and we gave away, we distributed and people paid for it. This documentary, no one's ever paid for it. There is a version up online for DVD, but I think it's 3 copies, because we haven't pushed it hasn't been advertised, and it only just went up. But for the first year and a half, everyone could watch it for free. Everyone could do everything with it for free. And the reason for that is that I saw that there's no point in making a documentary that I'm so like, we've got to save lives. If I'm going to put it, if you go to a distributor, they might shelve it for 6 months.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we decided, so it's been given away completely for free. And in that time, I've had a few emails, people saying that they were on the edge and that they were, seriously, that they were about to, and they watched the documentary and it's given them a bit more. And I always said that if the documentary saved one life, then it was worth it.
And when you say, for example, with students that would have taken their own life, there's a lot of different types of debt. I mean, you've got student loans, credit card debt, just utility bills. Do you know what sorts of debt it was that was making them get into a bind? Was there a common element?
With students, it was obviously the problem with students was that they were going to university. And this is the thing, we've overstacked the universities. We've just gone, everyone, like when I was younger, it was only the people that were worth it. You kind of went, oh, you're smart, you got a uni. And the parents kind of knew that. And now it's like just stack everyone into the universities. You know, I'm sorry, what was the question again?
About if there was a certain debt that you were finding was the common denominator.
Okay, So with students anyway, it was student loans, and the realization that when they got out of university that there was no work, and they were living with their parents, and then they sit there and go, how am I ever going to pay all this money back? You know, and even when I get to a point where I start earning decent money, a large chunk of it has to start going back to the student loan. And so doctors, you know, everything like trainee doctors, stuff like that, were just like, what's my life?
Right.
Killing themselves. With men over 55 and obviously and all the rest of it. I mean, I say men over 55 because it is, sorry feminists, but it's the largest suicide rate in the Western world, you know, is men, you know, for whatever reasons. But a lot of it could be directly related to debt. So what was happening is that say the men were splitting up. The wife was keeping the house and had the kids, and the man was basically staying in a room all by himself, and in massive amounts of debt, you know. And so that was one aspect, killing themselves. And the other one was people getting their houses repossessed. They paid their mortgages. You know, they thought they paid their mortgages, and the bank went, no, you haven't paid your mortgage, because at this time here, we changed it and didn't tell you, right? Seriously, this is, there was a big thing of Tom Crawford. You can look it up online, and they did that to him. He paid way and above over his mortgage over the years, but at a point, they changed his mortgage from,
like a variable rate
from a
or
repayment to interest only.
Interest only. Oh.
And so he gets to the end of him thinking that he's paid it all off, and they go, no, not even just that. They asked him for more money than what he originally bought the house for in the first place. After he they went after him constantly, and they sent. There was lots of people who went out and protected his house, and they stopped the bailiffs, about 4 or 5 times, and then what they did in the end was the police came and surrounded the house, which is they're not meant to do.
Wow.
It's not the police's job to help private businesses to steal someone's property.
No wonder you would want to top yourself. I mean, how would you even feel that you could stand a chance if your house is surrounded by police and you've got no money?
Yeah. Well, Tom Crawford didn't top himself. He fought, and he fought very, very well. But and he's still fighting now. I think that when they kicked him out, they moved all his stuff out, and then about 3 days later, he just went in, broke back in, and started off again. You know, at the end of the day. But no, yeah. But I think that was one of the big ones, with people getting their houses repossessed, especially after thinking that they've paid their mortgages, and that happens a lot. I mean, we're talking every day in Britain, hundreds of houses being repossessed every day, and people don't know what their rights are.
Right.
You know, and there's a thing in the documentary. I think it's again, sometimes I'm not great on names because it's been a few years, but there's a section from a Fisher and Lightwood, I think it is, Law of Mortgages, that basically says that if a property is to be taken, it must be taken peacefully. Must be taken peacefully. You know, and it says it in all the law books. It says it in the Criminal Law Act, 1973. It says it in the Schedule 12. I've got this written down here, actually. It's Schedule 12, because I knew I'd forget this one, of the taking controls of goods provision. And it says in there that violence cannot be used against a human. So whenever a house is to be possessed, or wherever bailiffs turn up, or any of this stuff, they cannot use violence.
Well, I mean, basically, if they can't, then if you stayed in your house, theoretically, isn't there nothing they can do?
The easiest way to beat a bailiff is by doing nothing, which is they knock on the door, just sit there and wait, and they will go. They will only wait 5 or 10 minutes. If they start bashing and that becoming violent and shouting, then you call the police. Just you film it. This is the other thing. So I've got to say, film it. Film everything that happens from the minute they come at the door, even if you're not answering it. Film it. And if they start getting violent, if they start banging on the door, you've got all the evidence. They're not allowed to do it. There's many, many court cases throughout the years that show that bailiffs are not allowed to be violent in any way whatsoever. In any way whatsoever.
What you said about the student loans as well, in my body, it makes me feel physically ill that people would invest their lives into an education and all their money, and their parents give money. I mean, in America, parents save for their kids to go to school. As soon as you get married, you're saving for kids' colleges, the kids you haven't even had yet, you know. Yeah. And then to think, you know, that you come out in England, because it is a bit of a different situation here with jobs. I think it is even harder here than overseas in North America. Yeah. And that they wouldn't have jobs, and you just owe all that money then for the rest of your life. Yeah. I mean, it's horrible. It reminds me, I spent some years as a shoe designer, and I spent a lot of time in China, really immersed in the culture and working in factories and stuff. And what was going on, a lot of farmers were committing suicide.
Yes.
And it wasn't in the press. I only heard it through my network of Chinese colleagues. And corporations were coming in, just taking the land to make golf courses and just taking the land from farms that had been in for generations of these families. And the man who was the man of the land literally would have nothing. I mean, they'd maybe give him a few bucks and send him on his way. And they were farmers all over the place were killing themselves. I mean, it was really just sort of so shocking, and it was not reported.
The crazy thing is that with this whole thing, is that I found is that there's many people who go, oh, I've tried all the stuff that you said and it doesn't work. And I go, well, what happened in the end? And they go, oh, I gave in. And I go, that's the same with every story I ever hear. The only people who fail are the people who give in. They can never beat you if you stand your ground. They might run you down mentally, but the more and more you practice this kind of stuff, you can say, I've had bailiffs at the door through experimentation. I've got videos on, if you haven't seen them, there's 2 videos with me dealing with bailiffs at the door, and within 2.5 minutes, they're running away, you know? And what I try and say to people is that, I'm not going too far off topic, you know?
No.
What I try and say to people is it's kind of like magic, right? And if you look into it, it's what magic is, get my English right, it's words. And we know this because it's called spelling and spells.
Oh, wow.
Right? Oh. And the word spell, you know, became, I think, in the 16th century to mean incantation. And incantation means a magic spell through words. Wow. Right? So the way I've always looked upon it when trying to teach these people is when these bailiffs turn up, is they're going to turn up with some voodoo, some magic. They're going to go, this is a walking possession order. This is a court, whatever it is, you know. And he's going to give that to you, right? And what you have to have is your defense of the dark art. So your research, which is, that means nothing. That needs my signature. That's not a court order. There's no stamp on it. And you start throwing your magic back. Right. You can't use violence. You can't force your way in. I'm not going to deal with you in any way whatsoever. Very specific, very this. Oh, you can even say, Schedule 12, Taking Controls of Goods Regulations. It says this, if they say anything, right? And you go there, and you're guaranteed these guys have never read this, you know? And you just keep, and I'm filming them, and they're going, you can't film me. Of course I can. Oh, it's against the copyright protection or whatever. Not copyright protection. What's it called? Oh, I've forgotten. But anyway, it's the act that controls Data Protection Act. Sorry, yeah. And you go, I can film anywhere I want. I can film on my private property, especially. I can film out in public whenever I want. There's nothing you can do. And I had this one guy going, I'm an ex-policeman, and I'm telling you, you can't film me and you can't use it, right? And I go, so basically the logic to that is, so what you're saying is that if a CCTV catches someone committing a crime, that then before we can use that in court, we have to go to the criminal and go, you know what, we caught you online, we caught you committing a crime, but we want to use the CCTV as evidence. Can we do that? And you're saying that he has the right to say yes or no? Rubbish. They don't even understand the basics of what they're meant to be doing as they turn up. Is that me pinging all over the place? They don't even understand the basics of what they're meant to be doing. And so you can, with your magic, you learn enough magic, right? Which is, magic means words. Magic means incantation. Spells and spellings means that you just need to stand there and as long as your research is right, as long as you've got all your spells right, you can defeat them. And as I said on the Nature of the Cage YouTube channel, you can watch these 2 videos. And I think it's Where's the Fear? Something Bailiffs, Chandler's Bailiffs, Where's the Fear? I think that's what they're called. And you will see this in action. I mean, the first one, the guy woke me up, it was in the morning, you know, I'm a bit tired, so I'm not firing on all cylinders, but I'm still doing a pretty good job. The second one, there'd been under 2 other times, but I wasn't in. But they've obviously been told not to engage with me. And so what they do is they come along and they go, and then they push the letter through the door and they run. And so in the second video, right, you see me, it starts off me running down the staircase with my phone in my hand, run out, and he's sitting in his van, and I engage him in his van. And so, but I engage him about the force and violence, because they keep putting in saying, we can break into your house, we can do this, we can do that. And it's all lies. But what they're doing is that they're trying to run on the pretense that, they go, if you've already let us in, if you've already let me in and we've done a walking possession order, we've kind of written down what you've got, we can then come back and break in. Well, yes, you can. But you'd have to be allowed in first, and I would have had to sign a walking possession order or something of that nature for that to be a contract to say that, look, I'm agreeing that this stuff now belongs to you, and if I try and lock you out, yes, you can break in. But the first instant, just like vampires, you cannot break in. You cannot use force. And even if I go to the second one where they can break in, right, so you've gone through this. If you stood in front of your door and said you're not coming in, there's nothing they can do. They cannot use violence against the person. And this is the thing about the whole documentary, is that I could have summed it all up in 5 minutes. I might still make the video, which is whenever you're dealing with people of authority and they're telling you what to do and you don't want to do it, you ask one simple question: can you use force? So I'll give you an example. Talking to a policeman, just randomly talking to a policeman, he goes, take your sunglasses off, you're talking to me. And I went, no. And he went, take them off, I want to see who you are. And I said, can you force me to do that? And he stands back and he goes, no. I go, carry on. And that's when it hit me. I thought, actually, this whole movement is about, can you use force? And that's where we need to get to. So you're sitting in your car, the police pull you over, the policeman says, can you get out of the car? And you go, can you force me to do that? And if he goes, no, well, I'm sitting in the car. If he says, yeah, well, go on then.
Now, just to play devil's advocate, though, if the policeman says, for example, take off your sunglasses or can you get out of the car, if you haven't done anything wrong, why wouldn't you cooperate?
Again, it's completely down to you. And the reason why we say about this non-cooperation, especially to authoritarian requests, so the police dealing with the law, I back them 100%. But like I said in the documentary, the most interactions that people will have with the police will be for non-criminal stuff like speeding fines or parking tickets or Section 5 Public Disorder Act, or all these things are not crimes. And because they're not crimes, force cannot be used. But police are using force. They're using force in non-criminal situations. So it's completely down to you if a policeman says, take your sunglasses off or not, right? But what we're trying to do is, the pushback is that the police are not an authoritarian overlords. They can't just come out and demand stuff from us unless we've broken the law, yeah? Because we've given them the right, if laws have been breaking. We haven't given them the right just to walk around and tell people, you can't film there, you can't wear your glasses, you can't do this, you can't stand in front of that building because that corporation doesn't want you there. That's not their job. Their job is crime. It's the detection and prevention of crime, to stop a breach of the peace. That is fundamentally all the policeman's job is. But now they're getting involved with kicking people out of their houses. They're coming along when debt collectors are at the door and kicking off, and then the debt collector calls the police, or you call the police turn up, and they go to the debt collector as if he's a symbol of authority, rather than the person who called the police. But here's the issue. A lot of the videos you see online, people are successful. Sometimes they're not. They get beaten up by the police, and dragged out of their houses, where the police are fundamentally wrong. It's not, like I say, if you watch documentary, you will see in there, I quote all the court cases that showed fundamentally, and remember, common law is about laws that are laid down in court cases, right? That's how it works. So basically, if someone invented a brand new plasma weapon tomorrow, right, and no one had ever been shot by it, right, or seen the effects of it, they would, as soon as the first person was shot, there'd have to be a court case, and that court case would go, well, you know what, these plasma weapons are really dangerous. Anyone that's carrying one, it could be seen as a gun, right? And now you're going to go to prison because we've deemed this, right? And that becomes, I'm going to say precedent.
Right?
Precedent. Yeah, that becomes precedent. So if the same thing then happens, so someone shoots someone with a plasma gun, and I'm the lawyer, I can come in and say, oh, well, this court case right here, so-and-so versus so-and-so, this was the result, showing that plasma weapons are illegal and that this person should have a minimum of 10-year sentence. That's how law is created, and that's how it's laid down. On the legal side, it's legislation, which is Houses of Parliament or Congress, and they're the ones that write it, So law is made by the people. So in courts, in front of juries, and they decide and they create the law through court cases, whereas the legal system is created through legislation, through bureaucrats, through all this. And this is what it is that everyone will know when they're breaking the law. You will never very rarely know when you're breaking a legislation or an act, because there are hundreds and thousands, and they're the most difficult things to read.
Wow. Would it be a kind of blanket assessment to say that the law was designed to protect people and the legislation is designed to protect companies, financial institutes?
Yes, exactly, 100%. And the thing is, like in the documentary, you'll see that I quote the legislation constantly, because what I realized was that actually, when you get to understand this, how to read this, because it's very difficult to read. And what I mean by that is you get to an act and you start reading it and it goes as in section blah, blah, blah of wherever. And then you've got to go to that act, read that whole section. Then it says, but this section was updated, and you've got to click on the update, read the update, and then it says, well, you've got to go back to this section over here. So to make sense of one bit, and it took me a while to get my head around it, but once you got your head around it, it's very, very easy, to track it. What was the question again? See, I've gone off.
I think you answered it. I was saying is if the law was originated to protect people.
Yes, and it is. And so the way that you win. And it's crazy because a lot of people call this stuff conspiracy theory. When my documentary, the first 30 minutes, when we're talking about the Strawman and stuff like that, I'll give you that, yeah? I can say that, there's no definitive. But when we get into the sections about the police and the debt, everything is 100% factual.
Right. You don't have to answer this if you don't want, but I'm just curious, when the bailiffs came to your door, what was your debt? Who did you owe money to?
It was a car parking ticket, so that's the only way I could get one, really. I deliberately got a car parking ticket.
You deliberately did it for your documentary.
Yeah. So I wanted to go to court. That was the main, because I've already got me on my phone winning car parking tickets, private car parking tickets in court. And basically the way I won that was by saying that that many people drive my car. And that because we've got a video production company and I've got camera operators left, right, and centre, could you please tell me who was driving my car on that day? Ooh. And obviously they can't, can they?
But
they have no evidence.
But then I would have thought that the responsibility is with the car owner.
It is now. They've changed the law now.
Because of you.
Because of me, yeah. They've changed it now. But what they did is that there was a sort. Again, I'm not 100% on this, but I think what they did was they went. There is no more clamping of vehicles on private property. So if you're in a car park and you overstay, they can't clamp your car. If your car's parked on your driveway, they can't clamp your car. There is no more clamping and towing of vehicles on private property. But the trade-off to that was I think, private parking tickets. That the person who owns the vehicle becomes responsible. But again, that's something I'd love to fight in court, because you could then argue, well, how far does this go? They borrowed my car and ran someone over. Is that my responsibility? Obviously not. So how far does the responsibility of the person who borrows your car go? So they get a speeding fine, that's my fault, right? But what if you knock someone over? What if he was in a car crash? And so it would be great to go to court and ask these questions and go, well, where's your cutoff? Where's the cutoff of responsibility?
That's a good debatable point, though. I think in America, it does go with the car. So if I let somebody drive my car and they have an accident, my insurance is responsible and I'm going to pay for it. And I guess...
But would you be criminally responsible if they knocked someone over
yeah.
and then ran away and then drove your car away?
I mean, that is a very good one, because you could argue then if you're the person that got injured, for example, and I let someone drive my car, I guess it becomes my judgment, doesn't it?
It might be different in America, but I think it's not. I mean, all you have to... when you lend your car to someone, the only responsibility you have, does this person have insurance? Does this person have a driver's license? And then that's it. I mean, in this country anyway, that's basically it. And then that person driving the vehicle becomes as the owner. So the police see them. So when you borrow someone's... It's even like if you rent a house. You become as the owner. You become all the rights of the owner. And the person who owns the house can't even get into the house without your permission. That's the thing, because it makes it easier in law, you see, to go, I don't even own that car. No. If you borrowed that car and you're in it, you're as the owner. We see you as the owner of that vehicle.
Right.
If you're renting a property, you're seen as the owner of that property during that period. Otherwise, you could be taken advantage of by the landlord.
So with a house... a renter, occupant would take the responsibility. With a car, you don't. As of now, the law, it's the owner of the car that's still responsible.
They're saying the owner of the car is responsible for until you grass on the other person.
So you grass your mate.
You grass your mate up. Yeah. And again, there's someone found out there was a loophole in this and it actually worked. I mean, I don't know if they've closed it now, but someone was driving, I can get it straight in my head. Someone was driving a car, gets a speeding ticket, the guy gets it sent to him. He wasn't driving, he lent it to his mate. And it says, obviously, you've got to grasp on the person that was, you've got to put all the details in. So he writes all the details in, his guy, mate. So he obviously calls his mate up and goes, what have you done, you tosser? Right. And then so he fills all the details out and sends it back to the court or the police. Anyway, he gets the police coming around and knocking on his door. And they go, oh, yeah. So you sent this back with all the, thank you very much, but you forgot to sign it. Can you sign it, please? And he went, what the hell are the police doing at my door asking me to sign this? And he goes, well, what if I don't? And they went, he goes, do I have to? And they went, no. And they kind of went, well, what if I don't? And they went, nothing. And he went, well, I'm not going to sign it then. Right? So he didn't. What it is that what it pointed out was you're only legally obliged, right, to fill in the information. When you sign it, that's like a contract, yeah? You're not legally obliged to sign it.
Wow.
So the signing it is the thing that seals it, that says, here's my responsibility, here's me vouching for this information, here's me here. And so he hadn't signed it, which means that the information hadn't been vouched for by anybody, but the law stated that only the legal, like the tax thing, the law states you only have to legally submit your tax returns. You don't have to pay your tax. You don't have to pay the physical money. And if they do, they can chase you, but it can only chase you, through like normal processes.
Boy.
But again, to everyone listen to this, with income tax, there is provisions where they can get at the end of very long court proceedings and everything. It's not something that would grab you, bite you in the arse.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, for any of this stuff, when you said about the only people that fail are the ones that give in, you've got to have a head and a consternation for this stuff. You've got to, yeah. I mean, I know I would not. Like, I can't stand anything out of line.
Oh, even
I
me
can't
now.
sleep, and I'm stressed, and I'd pay to get it off my back. I'd be the opposite of straw dog. I'd be like, cover me in straw. Here's my money, take it, go away, That's what everyone does, and that's what they rely on, and that's why it works for people like me, because we're such a tiny minority, and anyone that listens to my advice, that we become such a pain in the arse to them that they just go, oh. And even to the point where because what I've realized is that research is the number one way out of this. Knowledge is king. Knowledge will save you from everything. And so they would send me because obviously I've helped a lot of people, and then every now and again you get one letter and you go, oh my God, I've never even seen that before. I think they've got us, right? And then you do the research and you read and you go, oh, wait a minute. No, they don't even understand what they're saying. There was one to do with the law. So basically what people were saying was, let me write this down. So what people were saying, is that when a debt collector buys your debt, they've essentially paid your debt off, so you don't owe any more money, right? Which is one way of looking upon it. Yeah, I never knew that, by the way, till I saw your documentary.
Yeah. But what they tried to do recently is they tried to make out that this debt is property, right? Because the debt that they buy will never be the actual debt. So say it's a £10,000 debt, they will buy it for, they can at the very end of it buy it for like 50 quid, for 10 grand, right? So as you can see, this makes a mockery of the value of something. I mean, how you're saying that I owe £10,000, but these people bought that 10 grand for 50 quid. What? And so what they're saying is that this becomes a law, it becomes property. So the contract becomes property, and it now falls under the Law of Property Act, all right? Which is all to do with contracts and absolute assignment and assignment. And anyway, they wrote that they don't have to give any evidence because we wrote the standard letters, saying that we want, proof of the debt, basically. And they went, well, we don't have to do any of that because the Law of Property Act and so on and so on. And what was it they said? Because they've got assignment. I'd have to get the letters. But anyway, they tried to make out that they didn't have to give any details. They didn't have to prove the debt because they had just bought the contract, right? But they quoted absolute assignment, right, which is a part of the Law of Property Act. And so, again, it was very confusing. And again, I'm going from a long time ago memory here. But what I figured out was that they were trying to go with legal assignment. And what legal assignment is that the debtor still owns the debt, but they bring in a debt collection company to try and retrieve the debt. But if it goes to court, only the person the creditor, sorry, I've messed up my wording there. The creditor has to take to court and not the debt collector, right? Because they've got, I think, called legal assignment, which is just basically, go and try and get the debt. And so what this letter was basically saying, in one word, they're saying we've got absolute assignment, but they were claiming the rights of legal assignment, which is we don't have to prove the debt, which is, if you've got legal assignment, you don't have to prove the debt. It'd be down to the creditor that have to prove the debt. But what they have done is they've bought it. And when you buy it outright, it becomes absolute assignment, right? And what absolute assignment is you've bought everything. You've bought the proof and the burden of the contract, right? So, you've bought the... So you can go out and claim the money, but you've also got the burden of proof, yeah? So you become as the creditor. This is making... Sorry, I'm being a bit fragmented here, but it's
making sense. It's just I'm following along. So if you're the credit company that's banging on people's doors saying you owe money, you've bought the person's debt. So maybe you've paid 10 cents on the dollar for the debt. You now own it, and you're kind of pretending to be the person, in essence, saying, now you owe me all this money. And you said absolute assignment then. I guess you lost me a bit with the proof of burden.
Absolute assignment. So basically the simple first is legal assignment is I'm a debt collection company. The company that owes the creditor brings me in just to try and chase the debt. But what these people can't do is say they're going to take me to court. They can't say they're going to take me to court or anything like that, because that is down to the creditor.
The original person.
The original creditor, right. Now, if you buy a contract on absolute assignment, means that you buy everything. Right, you buy the burden of proof, and you buy the ability to go out and retrieve the money back again. Yeah, but you become as the original creditor. So what they try and do is that they say, oh no, we've bought the debt, so we don't have to prove where the debt came from. But absolute assignment states that you become as the creditor originally with the burden of proof. So what they were doing is that they were saying that they only had legal assignment by saying they don't have to prove it. But in the very act that they quoted, it said they had absolute assignment. It says any absolute assignment. But any novice, so even me, I looked at that and I didn't understand it at first. I had to go and do this whole complicated, I underlined the wording, absolute assignment, and all these words I didn't understand. Right. And then I went away and figured out what they meant. Then I went away and read all the court cases that related to it. Wow. Then I went away. It took me a weekend to respond to this letter. I did it for free, but again, it's great because I get to learn.
Yes.
I know it sounds a bit fragmented now, but trust me, people, it's very, very complex. Very complex.
What I'm doing. Trust me, it sounds very complex.
Very complex. But it's a game of cat and mouse. And this is the thing: the more I did this, the more confident I became because everything they threw at me, it was so easy to beat with logic. It was so easy to go in and look at the actual the acts and see what they were saying. Look at what judges have been saying over years. Go in to find court cases, look what they've been saying, and throw them all back at them. And I knew what was happening was they couldn't get the resources to go away. I spent a weekend doing that, They haven't got the resources to pay a solicitor to go away and argue with me, So I knew if I hit every single point and argued it back to the ultimate research, there is nothing they can do because they wouldn't waste their time over the amount of money that was owed, 200, 300 quid, 400 quid, whatever it was. And then you get the letter back going, although we still think you owe the money, we've stopped, or we're going to stop chasing it. We've closed the account and it's all done. I mean, I've got letters upstairs. I've got friends all over the place saying that. There's websites where people just post the letters using the techniques that we're teaching, and thousands of letters just showing you your account is now closed, 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 But I just want to say that all this stuff here and it didn't come about so people could go out and get credit card loans and then not pay them back.
Right.
Which you can do, because once you really understand that money isn't real and that you create that money. Sorry.
Go on, have a slurp of coffee.
But what I'm not advocating is people going out and deliver, because again, trust me, it's not nice. It's not nice being on the receiving end of bailiffs and all this lot, right? So this documentary was made for people through no fault of their own, getting into debt and then being pressured. And the worst thing is that the poor amongst us and the poor in society get it the worst, because they get and immigrants as well and foreigners coming in here that don't understand the law, they get it worse than anybody.
Probably seniors,
yes, like a lot of seniors though, they've got younger people and their sons, and they've got debt collectors coming, they come in and step in. But it's the people that so things like so what the governments and all the electrical companies and gas companies, they basically force all poor people to go onto Keycards. Right, so you make one, so we're like middle class, whatever like that. Even if we messed up so badly in our electrical bill, they would never force us to go onto a key card, right? They might try it and we say, no, you're not getting into our house. You know what I mean? Because you know this stuff, you're not doing it. Right?
I haven't heard of this.
Oh, you haven't heard
thing,
of it?
No.
Oh, okay. So when you go into any post office now or anything, a newsagent, you'll notice there are all these banks of things. And you might see people coming in, hand a key over, and they plug it in and they charge it. And they do this for your TV license, gas, electricity. And so what the power companies have tried to do is that, so any poor people living in council houses, anything like that, you make one infraction, you don't pay your bill on time, and they go, right, that's it. We're coming in, we're ripping your meter out, and we're putting a key card in. And then the money that you owe, we're going to put onto that key card. And so you put a tenner on, put your key card in, £1.50 comes off to the debt, and you get £8.50 on this.
Boy.
But listen to this. They pay 20% more than everybody else.
Oh, dear.
Than everybody else. And the people who just come out in the paper the other day, people who are poor and pay the TV license quarterly or monthly, pay £5 more than everybody else, equating to £16 million a year from the poorest people in society.
Wow.
So the BBC hit them. The gas companies do exactly the same. They charge up to 20% more on their key cards. The councils are involved in this. They're all involved in it to try and get the poor people to all have these key cards so they can put premiums onto the key cards. And then you've got, which comes back to residents, you've got these smart meters now. Did you discuss that?
We've got those in Canada, I know, smart meters now.
Smart
as
meters,
well.
they're going, oh yeah, we'll make sure that you don't pay as much money. Everyone has got a smart meter is paying more money. Because before they didn't really know how much you were using, Now they've got an exact, accurate on it. And obviously, going back to resonance, got subject slightly, is that these things pulsate, these electromagnetic waves, randomly around your house, and they are strong as hell. So what they try and do is they try and put all the houses in is that series? Yeah, in series, right? And they link them all together. So say you're at that end and that's where it starts. You will link to the next house, the next house, the next house, and this will create a stronger signal. And then the house at the end will have a big burster, it can throw it out to the towers, right? But you've got all these radio waves, right, and running through your house, just
right.
And if I don't know how deep you got into it, but one of the effects that we found in resonance was to do with the pineal gland. What we found was, well, it wasn't so much to do with, put a phone to your face and you get cancer, carry a phone in your pocket, you get cancer. The biggest effect that we found was, and again, this has been years, so I might get some of the terminology wrong, so forgive me if I do. But what we found was the pineal gland is a light sensor, and it sits, if you went like that, here in the brain. I know you can't see that, but it sits like in the middle of the brain. Yeah, like a third eye. And so when you go to sleep at nighttime, what your brain does is obviously, your pineal gland, is that it detects there's no light, detects there's no movement in the body that's asleep, and then it starts flooding the body with melatonin. Melatonin, is that how you pronounce it? Melatonin.
That one I remember.
Melatonin. Melatonin sucks up all the free radicals, and free radicals are caused by cell mitosis. I think it's cell mitosis. It's basically when the cells are rejuvenating themselves or they're dying, they send off electrons, and these are called free radicals. And these electrons are like when you smoke, it causes free radicals. And these free radicals could be the basis, and a lot of scientists say this, of all disease, all viruses, even cancer, which is they're saying that it's caused by these free radicals. Melatonin, is that right?
Yeah.
At nighttime, the pineal gland detects there's no light, detects there's no body movement, floods the body with melatonin. It mops up all these free radicals, reducing massively disease, cancer, all these other things. And so what we found is that these bursts coming from your phone, so you put your phone next to your bed or on your pillow, and it's bursting out, and it's constantly looking for a signal, or it's communicating with the Wi-Fi. Now, these waves are electromagnetic. All these things are electromagnetic, which are light, which are photon-based, yeah? So electromagnetic waves then pass through your brain, and the pineal gland goes, it's not daytime anymore. It's not nighttime, it's daytime. Right. Don't produce melatonin, right? And so what we're finding is that the increase of cancer that we see from 2000 to 2017, which has gone from 2000, it was 1 in 5 to now 50-50. Wow. So, the me, you sitting across, one of us is going to get cancer. That's what they're saying now. And this is in a 17-year period, you know. And what's happened? Mobile phones have increased and increased and increased, and Wi-Fi technology has increased and increased and increased. And so we were venerated. We were proven correct because the government came out and said that nighttime work was carcinogenic, and they said that having a street light outside your house was carcinogenic for the very reasons that we said that the mobile phone was carcinogenic, because light waves are pulsing past your brain. You're not producing melatonin, right? And so you're not getting your free radicals mopped up. So you've got a light outside your house doing the same as what your mobile phone's doing. If you work nights, unless you can black out curtain your whole room and get it completely dark, you're basically sleeping in the daytime and your brain's not producing melatonin. So you're not mopping up these free radicals. And so this is why we're saying that we see this massive increase. Anyway, we went completely off.
To clarify on that point, though, so when you say it's photons, which of course are light, this is a different frequency that we don't see with our eyes. So the phone can be giving this off even when the screen's dark.
Oh, God, it's electromagnetic.
It's still giving it off. So if you got your phone by your bed, your phone in your room, somebody else told me that if you're charging your phone and your iPad is even worse, that somehow it's amped up with the frequency.
It could be you get an electromagnetic field will be stronger, definitely, when you're charging.
And then it also is wrecking your sleep and you're not getting proper rest, which also means you can get sick because you're not resting properly.
Yeah, exactly, I mean, I'm terrible, and I know all this, and I still fall asleep listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
And all sorts of stuff. But again, I'm a smoker as well. I'm not a big smoker, but you know, we do these things, and you go. I don't hold the phone to my ear. I don't know where I became a hypochondriac after making a documentary. But during the documentary, I started getting. If I held the phone to my ear, it was just getting painful. It was just I'd get this numbness down the side of my face, and so I have not really, unless I've had to be on a train or something like that. I use my headphones or I use a speakerphone.
Yeah.
Because I really feel, and I really do, it might be paranoia, but I get physical effects from holding a phone to my ear for more than 5 minutes, and I start feeling numbness, and I start feeling a bit, and I physically, I'm taking it away and putting it on the speakerphone, or hunting around for my headphones. So yeah, I would say definitely I can feel that effect.
Yeah, I would agree with that also. Getting back to this 20% surcharge that the poor people of Britain pay on their electricity. Is electricity gas
and like the TV licensing?
Like this really surprises me, because one thing I always thought about this country was that it took care of the underprivileged pretty well with, you know, free medications and benefits and all this, that and the other. So it seems extremely illogical to me that they would charge more for power than they do to people who can afford the power.
I think there's twofold in that. One is that if you're getting your money from the government and you're not working and you're just getting, you can charge whatever you want for your services and stuff, because if it goes past what they can afford every month, the government will have to up what they get on their benefits. You know what I mean? So they kind of do it because they go, these people, I don't know, maybe the mentality is they haven't earned their money. You know, the money's coming from the government. And we keep putting them up and up and up and up and up. And if they can't afford to live, the government will go, all right, you need more money. You know, that's the way. So, and it will go, because it's going to their bills and this and that, and it's not going on like, you know, going out and partying and stuff. And I think there's a certain mentality of that, definitely. And what was the question?
Well, just it seems very illogical to me that with poor people, I would have expected they have a 20% break on the price.
It's a control system, you know, and I firmly believe that, you know, that, and it's really weird because I never used to think this way, and we were talking about this kind of stuff earlier. But it seems so good to go, right, go to the rich people, go to all these people and say, take all their money and give it to the poor, right? And then, you know, and then they can, you know, have some money, you know, share it around. But what seems to be happening is that, like when I was a kid, I was told by my parents and everyone that Margaret Thatcher was evil and that she was the most evil woman that ever lived and da-da-da-da. And then you watch documentaries and you go, well, wait a minute. She was for freedom of speech. She was for people standing on their own 2 feet. She was for less dole. She was for, at the back here, there's buildings there now, but that used to be what we called a YTS, a youth training scheme, where people leaving school that weren't the university graduates, your practical, using your hands people, went to YTS and got an apprenticeship. You know, they trained you for 2 or 3 years or whatever skill that you wanted, because they said, we don't want you on the dole. We want you to get out and stand on your own 2 feet. And then the whole idea is that we get less and less people on the door. We get more and more people standing on their own 2 feet. And that's how you make a country strong and successful, you know? So there's this control over the poor, which is in essence, they've married the government. So, and why I say that is the majority of single parents are poor single parents. And the reason that they do it is because the government quite literally say, you know, if the husband's there or the man's there, you get this amount of money. If there is no man there, you get this amount of money, which is far and exceeds what they would have got if the man was there. So what they've essentially done to poor people is said that we don't want the man around, right? The man's gone and the government is now your man, you know, or is now the one looking after you, you know, is the one giving you the money, you know. And so to try and answer your question is that I think that when you say, we treat the poor really well, you must understand it is a control system. It is a way to control people fundamentally through voting and everything else. Obviously, you know, you're poor and there's a Labour government and they're giving you everything that you ask for. You're going to vote for that Labour government again because they give me everything. And my benefits went up under Labour and blah, blah, blah. But we always have to look at the bigger picture. If you're just saying to people, you don't have to do anything, we're just going to give you money and you can, and then we hear about people who are getting 25,000, 30,000 a year, getting 5-bedroom houses because they've got 10 kids. What message are we sending out to people? Go out and have, and again, I think the complete opposite to this, but it's just logic. It's just logical. It's just logical, you know, that, that you make people stand on their own 2 feet. You make people go, no, don't be on the dole. Go out and make something of yourself.
Well, I'm sure you'll probably have had experiences like this as a creative person. I know myself, I've been a creative person earning since I was a kid. You know, I paint as well. And I've had a very untraditional life. And it has not been without strife and struggle.
Yeah, well, that's what it is.
Massive. And at
it's
times...
It's not worth it unless it's strife and struggle.
Massive, at times, massive financial pressures where, you know, I've had to have multiple jobs and working 7 days a week. A lot of my life has been spent working 7 days a week. And I wouldn't have it another way because it's just who I am and how I've chosen to live my life. I could have gone and had a 9-to-5 job, but I can't do that. I tried it for 3 months when I was 18. I got a psychosomatic kidney ailment, quit, and it all went away. And I realized, okay, I can't work 9-to-5 jobs, you know.
Neither can I, not anymore. I'll be
right.
Go on.
So sometimes when I read or am exposed to people who are in a position where they're more taken care of by the government, in one way you feel like, gosh, well, it'd be easy to feel. And sometimes I have felt this because I know people, they don't have the same financial worry I've had and have got. And I think, gosh, you're so lucky. You've got everything taken care of. But the part that I feel is the tragedy in their life is they don't get to discover their potential. Because when you're forced under a rock that you've got to come up with some money to pay your bills or you're going to lose something, to me, that is when you get resourceful and creative.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
I've opened a fine art gallery in that position.
Desperation pushes you, and you know, and not having a safety line pushes you.
Right.
So I always say to people that a lot of people missed it, but no, it's a great film. But the last Batman film, Batman or Bruce Wayne gets captured, and he gets. But trust me, this will work out well.
It all comes back to Batman,
right? And he's in a prison. Have you seen it? He's in prison, and he has to climb up and get out of this thing, right? And so they tell him this is what the kid did to get out. And so every time he does it, he has a safety line on. He ties a safety line to himself. And every time he tries to make the jump with the safety line, he fails. He then, on the very last attempt, takes his safety line off and goes, bugger it. And he climbs up and he jumps and he succeeds. And the message there was, if you've constantly got a safety line behind you, you've constantly got a fallback position, right, you're never going to succeed.
Yeah.
So, right? So it's like the famous stories about generals, you know, landing on the beach with their ships and then burning the ships so that their soldiers knew there was no retreat.
Wow.
And these are true stories.
Wow.
This is what they did. They said, there's no retreat. You fight. This is it now. You fight, you know. And it's the same thing. So if you're constantly thinking that the government's going to look after you, that if I try and, like the stuff they've done recently, £26,000 they gave to people in one, so they gave them all the benefits in one day, for a year in one day, you know, and the majority of them just failed miserably.
Wow.
But I think I've done with that bit. I didn't want to go in and start picking on people. So
No.
I felt I was going to be a bit mean then, so I thought I'd stop.
Getting back to Strawman, one of the things that you touched upon as well is you said, well, you caution people to get in that situation because it's not nice to be on the receiving end of a bailiff. And the other thing, to bring up is it's also depending on who they owe money to. Again, as an independent person, it's not nice to be owed money. So I also kind of wonder. Yeah,
but it's completely different. If someone
is it a different system?
Someone owns a human being money, that's completely different.
See, that's
you're
what I wanted to ask you.
You're a human being. You've gone out and you've given your labor, right? You will always be able to redeem that back. There's small claims courts are specifically set up for them situations, which are you as a freelancer, you as a human have done. So even at the point where, if say you built a wall and there was no contract, the fact that your labor is there and you can go, that's the wall that I built, right? Then you have won. In a small claims court, right? It's the exchange of labor for money. So in that sense, where people like me and you, if we've done a job and someone owes us money, there's no system on the earth in the world that will get them out of that.
I mean, in Canada,
we're talking about what we've got to talk about here is that if you go to a bank, sorry, and keep that thought in your head, you go to a bank and you borrow money. This is what we're talking about. They create that money on the spot. When you go in and you say, I want £20,000, right, or whatever, right, they're not going to the vault and going, oh, okay, here you go, here's that £20,000. All banks need human beings to create money. Banks can't create money on their own, right? What you do is you create what's called a promissory note. So a promissory note is, like you probably saw in a documentary, it says on all your, as he pulls it, have I got any notes on me? Oh, this is one of the new ones, so this will be interesting. But it always says on it, I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of £5, yeah? And what that goes to show you that if this is a promissory note, this is a promise to pay, this is not money. It says on it. I don't know if you can see right. I mean, it's tiny on this one, but it's right under there.
I'm holding the non-vegetarian £5
non-vegan
note.
£5
note.
note.
Non-vegan, there you go.
Can you read it, that little tiny writing?
Oh, God, I've got glasses on.
Does anyone have a note on a £10 note?
Flipping heck, that is small writing.
Yeah, it basically says, I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of £5. Yeah,
I can see
right?
it. Which
Which goes to prove to you straight away that that's not money. That's an IOU. Right. So basically, how money is created is you walk into a bank. This is one way how money is created. You walk into the bank and you say, I want to borrow £20,000, right? Now and so basically all money is based off human energy, the most valuable commodity on the planet, So so you walk in and you say, right, I want a £10,000 loan. Let's go there. Right. They will then bring a document out, right? And in that document, it'll have the amount of money. It'll have a schedule of how you're going to pay that money back. And how much they will get back in the end plus interest, yeah? That is a promissory note. That is a promise to pay. I'm borrowing money from you and I promise to pay it back using my human energy. So I'm going to work, I'm going to pay you back plus interest, right? So the key here is you created that money. They needed your signature, a human signature, right? And this promise to pay with your human energy back to bring that money into creation in the first place. Because remember, all money is a promise to pay, yeah? Because since the 70s, it's not been backed by gold anymore. And in the 30s and in the UK, it's not backed by anything. It's what's called fiat currency.
What does the fiat mean?
Fiat currency means money not backed by anything. It just basically means, I don't know the exact etymology of the word, but it just basically means that there's nothing backing it. Only the confidence of the people dealing with it. So the government says, well, that's worth £5, right? And we will back and say that it's worth £5, but essentially it's not worth anything. And that's why they have to put a promise to pay on it. And it has to be a promissory note and not actual money. Because what they used to say was you could walk into the bank and redeem £5 in sterling silver.
Right.
£5 of silver, right? That's what you could get.
Can you not do that now?
No, it's not backed by anything anymore.
So you can't...
That's worth
go
nothing.
and get anything. Wow.
Nothing. Because it used to say, rather than I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum off, it used to say you could walk in and get £5 of silver.
Right. Hence sterling.
So sterling. So that's why. So this bit of paper quite literally was a note to the gold or the silver which is being held in the safe. Yeah. So you could say, right, so rather than me carrying this gold around or the silver around, we now carry bits of paper around that says that's worth £5 of silver. So I know now that if I take this paper off you, right, it's not just paper, it's linked to £5 of silver that I can redeem at any point. Now, they took away those standards, the 30s in Britain, 70s in America, gold standard, silver standard. took them away, and basically said, now the money's just backed by belief, by the belief that it's worth something, right? And then this whole system of promissory notes, of IOUs, of human energy. So you go in and get your loan, you create this promissory note, which is basically promising to pay back, and then this becomes a species of money. This becomes money, just like this. So when you fill this whole format, you've created a £20,000 or whatever note, yeah? So the bank can now sell this. Seriously, sell this because it's money, right? So one, they're getting you paying back the money that you created plus interest. They're then taking the promissory note and they're selling this. And this is another way why we always beat the debt collectors, because they will never, ever have the original contract. They will never, ever have the original contract because it's been sold. Wow. Now, credit card companies, they try and sell and send people the when you sat there and agreed, so the agreement, right, to say, I want a credit card, right? They will send this sometimes and say, oh, this is the contract. And you go, that's not a contract. It doesn't, on there it basically says that I haven't even been accepted yet. It's all about you when you do get accepted, you know? So how can that be a contract? A contract would be we've both come to terms. We've both said, this is what you're giving me. This is what I'm giving in return. We both agree on it. We sign it, yeah? A contract can't be something which is, it's an application form, basically, right? So if anyone's listening to this and they go, oh, I've asked for this and I got a letter back, look at it properly. It will just be that contract, not even a contract. It'll be the thing that you signed initially applying for the credit card. So that's credit cards, but everything else, you will never in the history of me doing this has anyone got the original contract ever. And we know why, because it became a species of money. It became like a £5 note or £10,000 note, and the banks can, I don't know the process, but they sell it and goes on and makes more money. I mean, there's a video online that shows you that, you know, how one loan goes off to create like a £20,000 loan goes off to create like £500,000.
Yes, I've seen that also. Yeah,
you know what I mean? Now the way the banks work and the fractional reserve system and all that lot, you know. And so so when you start seeing this trickery constantly, how can you be scared of it? How can any one of these people go to you? Oh, you borrowed that money, you never paid it back. You go, well, look at the whole scam that you've just set up. Look, and I can show you it. I can show your scam from beginning to end. It's a scam. You made me believe that I was borrowing money from you when actually I was creating the money for the bank. And then you asked me to pay it back with interest.
If somebody doesn't pay a credit card bill and all the items on the bill were, let's say, to pay people like you and me, but then they don't pay their credit card bill, who actually gets stiffed? Is it
just the credit card company? You will never, as you've been paid by somebody, will never ever be stiffed to the system.
See, I have been stiffed. In Canada, when I was younger and spray painting T-shirts, I worked for a company in Toronto, this is way back, called Shirt Stop, and I painted my little heart out literally 7 days a week in the mall. And the lady who owned the shop would pay me every, 2-3 weeks. And she disappeared and went bankrupt. And the mall actually, I mean, it was horrible for me because she owed me all the money and she'd said, oh, I'll pay you next week. And she owed me a lot of money. And I was literally an artist, spray painting, working manually physical labor to earn my keep. And it was a big lesson for me. There was no way that I could get that money.
Not if a company goes bankrupt.
Yeah.
No. But that's the whole point of setting companies up, is that it takes you away, liability. So you can run a company like that's what it says. Limited liability, LTD, means that your responsibility is limited to nothing almost. So, and that's again which kind of proves the strawman thing. It's like, one's a company, it's not you, right? So if there's 3 directors on there, this is the thing, they can't be responsible, individually for what's going on in the company. The company itself it's very, again, it takes into really deep.
I think it's sad that the human can get screwed.
Well, no. The only reason you got screwed was because the company failed and it went bankrupt. And then there's a whole creditor system where it's who's going to get paid back first. And I'm sorry, people. And I had my first video production company, £60,000 was owed. 2 companies went bankrupt. We were at the bottom of the pile, didn't get a penny. I had to reinvent myself again, But that is the way that you can get stiff because of the whole limited company thing, the whole limited liability. So the human being goes, you know what? I don't want nothing to do with this anymore. The company has $100,000 in debt. I want nothing to do with this anymore. I'm out of here. And because it was a limited company, they can go bankrupt and then you don't get your money. It's not being stiff because the company, no one wants a company to fail at the end of the day. And it failed without most of the time, hopefully, without them wanting it to fail. But that's the whole point of limited liability. So yeah, the one way that you can be done as a normal person just working is if you work for a company that goes bankrupt. But you're not technically being done because that company has lost all its money and lost all its assets and lost everything anyway. So yeah, you've picked up the one situation where you can lose that. But you can see why, though. Yeah, you can see that it's not.
Yeah, it certainly
And a lot of these companies, what they did to us was they made us do the work, even though they knew they were going to go bankrupt.
Well, that's what.
Even though they knew.
Well, this situation was like that also.
And you can take them. The thing is, you can still take them to court, but you've got to understand the limited liability thing means that if the company has nothing left, you can't go after the human being. You can't go after the person because the company is completely separate to that. Unless they committed fraud, unless the person committed fraud or they deliberately knew again, there has to be a crime being committed. But if it's simply they ran out of money, the finances were terrible, it went bankrupt. And even if you went, they knew they were going bankrupt and they still employed me. Where are you going to get the money from?
I mean, it was awful to be in that situation and be stiffed. It felt horrible. Yeah. It in a way was a blessing because it changed how I lived the rest of my life. Where now, when people want artwork from me, they pay up front.
Yeah, well, yeah, it changes you. That's what I do now. I mean, I'm like 50% up front, right. 50% on completion, and they don't get it anymore. I'm even like 100% up front sometimes. Right. Yeah, it's changed me. But what I want to say, there's a thing I want to say about the, about the control system in the governments with the poor people. There's an interesting video online, and this is the point I was trying to make, and it was the food stamp computer went down in America. I can't remember which part of America, but just look for food stamp. It went down for one day, and there was almost riots in the streets. You know, you can watch the video, you can see people going mental. Oh, I haven't fed my kids haven't ate since this morning. People going, I haven't got any medication. One day, 24 hours, right? And what I try and do is try and say to people and say, if you don't believe that there's a control system in place of the poor, watch this video. Because these people are in such a position that one day without food stamps, they're starving.
Wow.
One day. But what we teach is that, what I teach is you should never rely on anybody.
Right.
On anybody or anything. You should always have enough food if you can, backed up. You should but even just that anyway, you should, if you're on food stamps, you should be constantly looking for a way to get out of it. If you're on the dole, you should be constantly looking for a way to get out of it because at any point, they can cut you off.
Right.
At any point, when you watch these Channel 5 programs about people in the door, what's always happening? They're always going to meetings because they don't believe that they're allowed enough money anymore. They think they're more able than they are, and they're cutting their benefits. And so these people who had a place that was being paid for by the government all of a sudden have to move out. And so it's a constant begging and pleading and, oh, don't do this. And it's a constant worry for these people as well, because they have no control over what's happening to them. And so it can't be a good position in any way you look up on it. But again, it comes back to control. And this, and that is this lefty idea of just giving money to the poor and that will fix everything has been proven over and over and over again to fail and fail miserably wherever it's been implemented. And we're doing exactly the same now. And you're not helping people. You're not helping the poor people by saying the government will look after you, will give you whatever you want. But you piss us off. You're out.
Yeah. And I guess back to what I said about that ultimately the person, if you deprive somebody of motivation, they're not discovering their own potential. And people are amazing. People have such amazing capabilities. I mean, there's so many stories in history of people against the odds becoming heroes and doing incredible things. And, if you're supported at a minimal level that you don't have to go out and figure out what it is you're capable of, it's quite a tragedy, I think.
Well, it is. It's like they say as well. It's like a part of the control system is that most people are paid just enough to live a nice middle-class life. They're not incredibly rich, but they're not poor. And that arrests them. They go, oh, okay, I'm kind of comfortable, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so nearly everyone I went to school with, we all had dreams. And I always wanted to be a filmmaker. I can take it right back to 7 years old when I watched Hooper, which is about a stuntman. A Burt Reynolds film is about a stuntman. And it was the first time I saw behind the scenes. And I was like, that's what I want to do. You know what I mean? But nearly, so all my friends had these ambitions as well. We all grew up, they're all gone. I'm the only one left. I'm the only one, going, this is what I want to do. And I'm still, still doing it, And yeah, it's sad that their dreams just get, ripped away from them and they just can't, they just accept it. But when you understand that when someone's comfortable, when they're not poor and they're not rich, but they're just comfortable, it takes away all ambition. It takes away, because you're not wanting for anything, you know?
No.
And I've purposely in my life put myself in positions many times where I've had to, because of that Batman thing, like I said, where
Right.
I've deliberately cut off the safety nets. So I will fight. And this is, even now, doing this documentary now, we could have gone out and raised over 100 grand. We're doing it for 15 grand. You know, we're going to LA and Colorado, you know. But and the reason I did it that way is that I knew I'd have the hunger. I knew if I was just relying on the money, if I was relying on the money to solve all our problems, you know, so when we go to LA, we just book a really nice hotel near LAX, you know, gets, you know, a big car. But now we're looking at Airbnbs and really cool apartments on Venice Beach and stuff like that,
Right.
you know, to come into budget. We're looking at driving to Colorado past Vegas. And it makes you go, you think about it in a much better way and a much more productive way. Whereas when you've got money, and you know this when you work in the industry, when money's just thrown at you, you just be like, all right, then we're flying to Colorado, then we're flying back to LA, then we're going to stay in this hotel. But now we've planned this trip and to maximize the tiny budget that we have, the LA budget, about $4,500 for 3 people, to its maximum. And now we're going to drive through Vegas up to Colorado, you know, we're going to stay up in the mountains up in Colorado and stuff like
amazing.
that. And we wouldn't have done that before. But
Right.
so I think, when you're comfortable and when you've got someone looking after you, like i.e. the government, you do not try and attain the greats or you don't try and achieve your dreams as if you did when you haven't, you know, when you've got no fallback.
Yeah, there's a lot of people probably don't realize the toll it takes, which people like you and I, we've been willing to pay that toll. But I mean, there's many sleepless nights when you don't know when your next job is coming. And so you could get the balance scales out and say, well, my friend Ted over here, he's got a job for a pharmaceutical company and he's got a nice paycheck and he goes on a holiday for 6 weeks a year.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even remember the last time I had a holiday because my life, I just try and do what I want to anyway, so I don't tend to crave a holiday as much as maybe people
we travel around a lot as well. And your
travel.
holiday's sitting at home on the sofa. That's my holidays.
There's never, although life can be perceived as a bit of a holiday, I also feel that there's never a day off.
Yes.
Because your work is always on your mind. It doesn't go away. Whereas when you have a 9-to-5 job, you leave on a Friday, you're done.
Yeah. That you know what you're talking about here is what I talk about constantly. And so in the last 3 weeks, I've had to go, you start at 10 in the morning, finish at 6:30. That's my working day now, right? Because I'm not an early riser. Well, I used to, honestly, up until 3 weeks ago, I quite literally would work from 10 in the morning through till 3 in the morning.
Whoa.
You know, with little breaks, coming to playing with the kid and having dinner.
Wow.
You know, quite literally. Because you're at home, the computer's there, you've got editing that needs to be done. You just get on and do with it. And so what I've kind of done now is I've said that 6:30, cut-off point. And here's the thing, I don't just stop. But it becomes my hobbies now. So like, you know, I've got other YouTube channels that I work on, like Discuss with you. I've got other bits and bobs that I do. I work on my hobbies now in the evening. I write scripts in the evening. I come up with film concepts and ideas like I used to, you know what I mean? So I've definitively now gone 6:30, stop work and either do nothing, just sit and watch rubbish YouTube videos, or work on my own little side projects. And you know what? The mental stability I'm getting from that. Because before it was like, I realized the reason I was feeling weird was because everyone else had a cut off. They would finish work, come and sit on the sofa, cut off.
Yes.
I didn't have that. It was a constant 7 days a week.
Yeah. I'm in the 7 days a week still.
Because even when I had an office at L Street, you know, I was there for 6.5 years, I still had an office here. So you'd finish at the office there, come home, have dinner, up to the office.
Right.
You know, and carry on working, you know, so, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's very commendable that you've managed to, you know, form this structure in your life of 10 till 6. That's very impressive. But
doesn't always work.
But look what you said you're doing afterwards. Yes, you could call them hobbies, but it's still production and video.
Well, yeah, that's the
it's
thing.
just unpaid projects.
I can't sit and watch TV. I'm not one of these sit and watch TV people, you know. And so I'm my happiest when I'm obviously a lot of my life at the moment is caught up with real stuff, like, you know what I'm saying, like the Resonance, like Strawman, like my new documentary, The Minute the God Plant, you know, these but I also really like fantasy, you know what I mean? I also like, you know, like we talked about before, like with the science and simulation theory, double slit experiment. I love all that kind of stuff, and so that's the stuff where like my scripts, they're always based in this kind of area, you know, the one I'm writing at the moment in co-production with Elstree Studios, not Elstree Studios, the actual studio, but a company called Elstree Studio Productions. And and they're very high concept, and and I love that kind of stuff because it's like my balance from I'm harshly in reality most of the time, dealing with a lot of political stuff, a lot of like like real subjects, and so at nighttime I love disappearing off into that sort of like you had a thing called the Mandela effect. Have you ever heard of that?
Do you know, it rings a bell, but I don't actually know what it means.
Basically, it's for one weekend. Oh my God. For one weekend, I thought we were living in a parallel universe. And it's what I do with research is that I allow myself to get caught up in the fantasy, and then I go away and look for the counter-arguments, then use my brain as a filter to go, what do I believe and what I don't believe? The Mandela effect is basically mass misremembering through pop culture. But when you look at it, there's things in the Mandela effect that are like, oh my God. So you've seen Star Wars, yeah?
Yes.
Right. So let me explain to you what Mandela effect is first before I jump too far. A few years ago, when Mandela died, people started going, wait a minute, I thought Nelson Mandela died in 1993. And this started a talk on the internet, and many people were going, I remember the news article, I remember his funeral, I remember Winnie Mandela. And this, the people are going, this is crazy. How come there's so many people think, and I'm not saying I believe this, by the way, how come so many people think that Mandela died in 93 when he actually died of, now? And so what people started saying was that maybe there's something with parallel universes. Maybe parallel universes are flipping across each other.
Like Fringe.
Yeah. So basically what they said is that the D-Wave computers, that were the world's first quantum wave computers, there's 5 of them, I think, at CERN, and they're in they're serial together, or parallel, whatever you call it, parallel together, serial together. They're connected together, and they've got a certain amount of quantos, whatever they call them, inside of them. But the guy who invented these things has done a talk basically saying that these computers access parallel universes. Right? Yeah. So from parallel universes are just theory to him saying that the way that they work is because quantos, you've got quant bits, which are 1 or a 0, binary, yeah? But these quantos, they are in every position. They're up, down, left, right, like that. And that's why they've got all these different computational. But he also said that in that core, and that quantum now is accessing a parallel universe, but the only thing that's different in that parallel universe is the position of that quantum, whatever it's called, in the chip, yeah? And so if you think about that exponentially, you can use this computing power now because you're accessing parallel universes. You can have that in any position you want, and it's almost like being psychic. It's almost making the decisions before the decisions are happening, yeah? So what people are saying is that with this Mandela effect is that when they started running all these experiments at CERN, they then set the D-Wave computers going, and the D-Wave computers are accessing parallel universes and causing fragments of our past to start melding in together. So I'll give you some examples. You've seen Star Wars, yeah?
Yes.
Did you know C-3PO had a silver leg?
No.
If you type in C-3PO silver leg, you will see, right? Yeah, so the first thing you go, and he's got a silver leg in every single frame of the film, right?
Did you know this?
No.
You're a Star Wars fan.
You can look it up, right? You can look it up and you see it, and you go, Then the next thing I saw, you remember Moonraker with Bond film?
Yes.
Right? And so I'll try not to preset you up, but there's a bit when he meets the girl with pigtails, yeah? The Jaws, the guy with the metal teeth. And it's when they've been on the ski slopes and the whole thing collapses, what do you call it? The lift thing collapses. And anyway, she helps him up, I think. She helps Jaws up and stands back, and Jaws stands up and he's all mean. And then she smiles, and then Jaws smiles back at her. But can you remember, apart from the pigtails, what was unique about her smile or about her face?
Oh, gosh.
Didn't she have teeth?
She had braces.
Yeah.
Never had braces. You can go, the first time I saw this, all right, because they go, she had braces, yeah? And you're like, yeah, she had braces. I remember her. But the whole point is that he looks mean at her. She smiles, he sees her braces, and then he goes, oh, we're connected. Yeah?
What?
But if you go back, you can watch that scene now.
And she didn't have
people
braces?
have gone and bought the VHS original copy, and they've gone back and there's one on the internet, and they've fast forwarded to that scene, and they go, it's not there. It's not there, right?
Whoa!
So to the point that people say that Prince died because his lyrics of his song changed, yeah? And they said that it kept him awake for 5 days, right? Because what song was it? Is it Let's Go Crazy? We are gathered here today to celebrate this thing called life.
Let's go crazy.
But everyone remembers it one way, but it's actually completely different to what you think. Yeah, the lyrics in the song. And so there was a conspiracy theory saying that he found out about the Mandela effect. He found out that the lyrics in his song had changed, and it kept him awake for 5 days on drugs trying to figure out what was going on. I'm not saying this is true. This is just a conspiracy theory.
It's a fantastic theory.
It's just a great idea. And then he died
Wow.
because of that. But it's like, there's many to the people saying that the VW symbol's changed. So the Ford symbol, people say that it's now got a pigtail on it. So like it goes Ford and then it's got a pigtail on the Ford thing. And people say they don't remember it having a pigtail on it. As I said, like lyrics changing in songs. And I can't remember half of them in it. The silver leg, the teeth. But anyway, a lot of it is in pop culture. So they say that the film Interview with a Vampire,
Yes.
right, is actually Interview with the Vampire. But everyone remembers that as Interview with a Vampire.
Yes.
And you can even find the cast, Brad Pitt and everything talking about it, and they're going Interview with a Vampire.
Wow.
But the film was never called Interview with a Vampire. It was called Interview with the Vampire. So they're picking up these little things and going, look, right? But what I kind of got to the end of it is that it's kind of mass misremembering through popular culture. So the Jaws thing can be explained away. I think, I'm not saying this is truth, is that after the film was made, and you can look this up, a lot of the adverts that they did using the Jaws characters, at that point they introduced braces into the girl. So the girl sitting at the till, Jaws comes along, but again, it can still be argued, right? Comes along, and there's an advert, and Jaws smiles, and she smiles and sees the braces. But then you go, but that's what made that scene logical.
Right.
That she had braces.
Right.
So where are the braces gone now, right? It's the only one I can't figure out. But yeah, there's all song. Look into it. It's nuts. There's a nice little documentary. It's got a computerized voice on it. And so anyway, the whole reason I'm telling you all this is that I don't believe it. I kind of think I figured it out, that it's to do with mass misremembering through pop culture and things change. So Interview with the Vampire. When you say these things, they sound pretty similar anyway.
Yeah,
You could misunderstand that,
point to make with the C-3PO.
Go on.
Well, the new one in The Force Awakens.
He's got a red
arm.
Yeah. So it's like an injury.
Well, it's saying, like, is that now paying homage
to the silver leg?
To the silver leg.
Yeah, exactly.
He's now got a pink arm. There was no explanation of that. C-3PO now has a pink arm.
Yeah.
Does he still have a silver leg?
I don't know. I have to check. But in all the old films, 100, you can put it in the computer, silver leg, C-3PO, silver leg. And it's crazy. It's crazy. You look at it and you go. So when I first saw it, I don't smoke a lot, but I smoke weed, and I smoke weed at the weekends, and I was caught up. I was like, oh my God. And I was running downstairs going to my wife. I was going, right, you've seen this film. And she was going, what are you going on about? And but this is how my mind works. I allow myself to get caught up in the fantasy. I allow that before I shoot it all down. But what I don't allow is to be constantly caught up in the fantasy, like these flat earthers are at the moment. They're just like, they're caught up in this constant madness and they will not let it go. I go, okay, right, let's look at all the other evidence and then go, oh, okay, it's probably mass misremembering. There might be something in it, but most probably is everyone's remembering stuff. So build it and they will come, right?
Right.
He actually says, build it and he will come.
Oh.
But it doesn't make sense to say that. So you go, I've got a website and it's really, really good. And I go, build it and he will come. You go, if I go build it and they will come.
Yeah.
And the reason that it became build it and they will come was because in Wayne's World 2, they had the whole build it and they will come. Do the big concert, put the big rock concert on. And he keeps saying, and Jim Morrison says it because he goes and visits Jim Morrison's ghost and he says, build it and they will come, right? And so everyone goes, oh no, it's the Mandela effect. No, it's not. It's because popular culture reused it, but changed a certain word so it makes sense now rather than just to the singular. It now makes sense to everybody, But anyway, it's a really great concept for a film. And so we're working on a film at the moment called The Mandela Effect.
That sounds awesome.
And it kind of doesn't just sit in the Mandela effect. It goes through the whole simulation theory, double slit experiment that we talked about earlier on. It goes through about what is reality, and yes, it's very, very deep, very, very, I won't go into too much because every time I see it talk about next thing you know, it's on the telly.
Well, I was going to say.
We were working on a film about, with the same people, about multiple personalities and about the way that, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but there's people with multiple personalities where one says allergic to orange juice and they drink it and they come out in hives and then they force the other personality out and that personality is not allergic to orange juice and the hives go away, which is like, and they've got other people that one of the personalities wants to kill them, one of them's a defender. And then they've had people that have slipped into alternate personalities and they get this like strength, like you wouldn't believe. They're fighting people, you know, the protector comes over. And so we were working on this whole project about this, about, you know, like multiple personalities and this corporation trying to create biological robots and then get the AI into them, but they couldn't figure out consciousness. So they got this guy with multiple personalities and they know that it's through trauma. So mass trauma. So nearly everyone with multiple personalities was abused as a child. I mean, badly.
Yes.
So what happens is the brain goes off and creates another reality while this one's dealing with the punishment.
Right.
And so we were dealing with this whole thing that they're trying to lever personalities into brains. And what this does is that, oh God, I'm going to forget the name of it. Rupert Sheldrake, you ever heard of him?
Yeah.
What does he call it again? He calls it the quantum. Oh God, brain. Well, he basically said that there's this field around the Earth where all...
morphic field?
Morphic resonance, that's
morphic
it.
Resonance,
so what we kind of did in the film, the original film, is that when they try and lever this personality in, it affects, and no one knows, the morphic resonance. The morphic resonance is almost like a computer that holds all species, all the informations of all species. It thinks it's under attack, and it crashes and it shuts itself down, and everyone becomes disconnected from the morphic resonance, you know, and they all start becoming a bit more like zombies. But these people know, so there's this group of people that take anyway. And then M. Night Shyamalan, whatever his name is, M. Night brought a film out called Split, which is like 50% the same story. Like, just brought it out. It's coming out. I think it's just been in the cinema. And we were like, oh. That's what happens when you set an idea for far too long.
That's right.
Because when we first started talking about it, everyone was going, oh, multiple personalities, no one's really making films about that. And when I started explaining what, you know, the idea was, they were like, wow, let's do that.
Yeah.
And then you go, oh, now someone's just made a film about the strength, about taking that hidden strength out. And so, yeah, it's...
What if people with multiple personalities or schizophrenic people are actually just very advanced, cutting-edge human beings who are perceiving different dimensions and worlds?
It's the most amazing thing that I've ever looked into, because it kind of goes to show you what is a human being. You can create inside your mind, if you went through mass trauma, right, another separate personality that believes that it's an individual within itself and might not, in most cases, know that you even exist. And it firmly believes that it has a history, it has a future, it has a past, it has everything. And it's an independent, living human being. And so to the people who lose their memories, get in a car crash, bang, lose a memory, no memories at all. They then start forming a brand new personality. So if they were an arsehole beating their wife, getting into debt a lot, right? If they're now hanging around with normal, sane people, you know, they now form a brand new personality. They have no memory who they were before. That person is dead. They now, through all the new interactions, form a completely different individual personality.
I mean, with the quantum physics stuff that you were talking about that's being done at CERN, where these particles, which I love all of this stuff, where the particles go into and out of existence, which we know now is what happens. And that's why there's so much discussion now amongst scientists and physicists about multiple dimensions and parallel universes, because where are those particles going? Well, what if a person, for example, you said a schizophrenic person who has one personality that's got a lot of strength, what if they're in a different dimension where humans are much stronger in that dimension and they're, you know, they've slipped into... I mean, I'm not saying I believe this. I'm just brainstorming thoughts.
I love stuff like this because it goes two ways. One way I go, that's great for a story. Another way I can go, well, I know how that's probably not possible. Well, I know the mechanism behind this ultimate strength thing. And it's the mechanism is that we've all got about 2 or 3 minutes or 2 minutes of reserved 90 seconds of real... I mean, I'm talking real bastard strength. Right?
Bastard strength.
That's when you hear about the woman, the car falls on the baby. She goes, "Wah!"
Yeah.
And one of the famous stories is a guy who was falling down a mountain, and there's this, and I think it was 10-ton or 20-ton rock is falling towards him, and he hits the ledge, and as the rock gets to him, he pushes with his legs and his hand a 20-ton rock off him.
Oh my gosh.
When you ripped all the muscles in his shoulders, all the muscles down here on his legs, right? But when the emergency services got there, they looked at it and they were like, what, you threw that over your top of you? And he was like, yeah, I fucking flipped it like that.
Wow.
And they were like, impossible, right? You could never do that. But then when they saw all his injuries, all his muscle rips and everything like that, they were like, maybe he did. And so I think what it is that We can all access this 3 minutes or 4 minutes of like stupid speed, stupid strength, but at the end of it, if you did we normally only access it for 10, 15 seconds, 30 seconds at a time, and we badly injure ourselves. And that's why your body won't allow you to do it. That's why most people sit at 60 to 70% of their strength. They will never go to 100% of their strength because the body will just fundamentally not allow it unless there is this
a threat.
Yeah. Then and so I think the process of the strength thing comes from that. I think they can only keep it up for a few moments and then there'll be. But yes, I love your idea.
Now
though,
here's another
as a story.
Here's another one, and this I just spoke last night. This will be in an episode at some point with Judy Hall, who has written like over 40 books on crystals. I mentioned her when we first arrived. She was telling me she does past life regressions with people. Now, I've never had this done. She had a lady with terrible asthma, like wicked asthma. She put her in a past life regression and apparently discovered that in another life, this lady had been crushed by a horse where she couldn't breathe. During the past life regression, Judy Hall fixed the situation. She talked her through it, that in fact, the horse didn't fall on her. She was not crushed by the horse. And when she came out of the past life regression, her asthma was completely gone. Now, that's something that you could...
But that goes to show that the human mind, I believe, is the
so
single most powerful thing. We all know about the... what's it called again? There begins with a P. No, when you take medicine and it's not the real medicine.
Placebo effect.
We all know about the placebo effect, and everyone knows about it, but no one makes a big thing about it. I'm like, well, you try to tell me, most people, you can trick them and go, oh, that's the pill that will cure you.
I think it's 30%.
Right? It's like, 30%, but even more. I mean, it's like, and it cures them because of their belief in the cure.
Oh, I have to tell you something else on the line of the placebo effect. So I had a bizarre thing happen with a relative who was tremendously ill recently, and it was pretty spooky. And it was kind of like a reverse placebo effect because she was unconscious. She was having difficulty breathing. The nurse came in and there were 5 of us family members around her. And the nurse said, I'm going to give her some medicine in a port in her arm. She had one port on her left and one on her right. Gave her the medicine. Right away, all of us in the room said, oh, look at that. She's breathing better now. Thank goodness. Oh, wow. That worked so fast. And we all felt this massive relief to see our relative that we're caring so much about and loving breathe more comfortably and peacefully. 5 minutes later, the nurse comes back in and she goes, I'm so sorry. I put the medicine in the wrong port. It wouldn't have done anything.
So it was just the belief that the medicine had worked.
But she was asleep. So here's the placebo effect working with us in the room. And I said to the medical profession, because I was like, whoa, hang on a minute. You're telling us that medicine did nothing, but we saw her breathe with our own eyes.
Well, it's intention, isn't it? And it's like I used to read all the stuff about The Secret and everything and go, and laugh at it until it hit me. Because like anything, I research the hill. I look at something and I research it to the death. And I go, yeah, all right, there is something there, but I don't know what it is. Until it hit me one day, I was like, do you know what? I hate slow cars. I hate having cars in front of me that are slow. And I moan about it and I get angry about it. And what do I get every single day? And even people who get in the car with me, they go, John, how do you do this? Right? I'm always getting slow drivers, in front of me. And other things like, and then I realized, wait a minute. When something bad happens, right, I'm always back and I'm putting all this energy and I'm like angry and I'm pissed off over stupid little things, But when good things happen, like little good things, I'm not going, woohoo!
Right.
Yeah! Right. Like that, like constantly, you know what I mean? So what I started noticing was, we've all had it, the bad day. You wake up and I think that people say you stump your foot and then the whole day you crash a car, your computer breaks, and you go, how is everything going wrong?
Right.
Because that moment when you stumped your foot, and this is what I'm starting to believe, you started putting all this energy out there. Fuck you. I'm so angry. You know? And they talk about that, the universe. I hate using that word, but they go, went, okay, this is what you want. You want this, you want this, you want this. And then I went, well, wait a minute. If it works in the bad way, which we all know because stuff out of our control happens. Right. Someone crashes into the same day that everything else has gone wrong. That's when someone randomly crashes into your car. And you go, that is so out of my control. It's unreal, So why doesn't the opposite work? Why shouldn't the opposite work? Whereas every time something, goodness is what I try and do now, every little good things that happen, I put, whoa! Yeah. Because I'm not saying I believe in it. I'm just saying there's nothing to lose. And I've noticed the effect the other way. So I've got really nothing to lose by whooping and cheering every time little things happen. And all I can tell you is that 6 months ago, I was sitting there going, oh, I don't want to do with my life anymore. Not with my life, but like what am I going to move forward? And I went, do you know what? I need a new kit. I need to really, because all my kit's old now. Even though my camera's like a £7,500 camera and all this, like, I need a 4K. I need a 4K kit. I need a £3,500 Mac to handle this 4K kit. And I just went, I know, I'll do another documentary. And then I'll go out there and try and raise the money. And then you get these thoughts and you go, all right, how am I going to do that? All right. And quite literally, I had the thought, 2 months later, I had the budget and the equipment. And now upstairs, I've got complete 4K
nice.
Everything. I've got a 5K Retina display, iMac. It's one of the most powerful iMacs you can buy.
Nice.
You know, I've got 4K cameras, lenses, everything. And again, you go, because my attitude was positive.
Right.
I knew what I wanted. I knew how to do it. I had a basis. What I mean is that people will go, well, we're going to give you money. What have you done before? You know, and it's all, then you start applying everything. You go, oh, actually, if you build a base, if you build foundations, and then you move forward, you can sometimes get whatever your mind imagines. You know, you go, this is what I need. And I'm not asking for massive, massive big things, you know. This is what I need. This is how I'm going to apply for. Every time little good things happen, I'm going to pump my fist and celebrate. And all I can say to you is that I've kind of lived my life this way for the last couple of years, and nothing really bad happens, and a lot of good stuff happens.
Yeah.
And the things that I think and I go, this is what I want, happen.
Yeah, well, a lot of people overlook the power of thought in that, and I know this as a product designer that I've seen it, you know, over and over again. Everything you see around you in your entire life started with a thought.
Yes.
Somebody somewhere along the way thought, this wooden chair, this wooden chair is hard on my back. Yeah. I wonder if people would like to sit on a chair with fabric on it, maybe with a bit of foam to make it squishy. Every single item that we confront in our life started with a thought. Even us.
Yes.
We started with somebody getting romantic, thinking she's cute, he's cute, you know.
But it's only the first step, and that's what we have to remember.
That's right. Then you have to act upon the thought.
On it.
But it's that spark of the thought. And I want to make sure I don't miss a thought that you had, because you were going to say something about the placebo effect. And I got all excited because of the reverse placebo effect with my relative that I witnessed. But you were very excited about placebo effect.
I can't remember what I was going to say now.
We were talking about just how people react and, you know, people heal.
Yeah, so I'm saying I think the human mind going down. I think the human mind is absolutely amazing. And it is one of my biggest obsessions, you know, with research, because where is consciousness? Where does it reside? What is consciousness? I mean, we know it. We sit here and we feel the snap of alive and like, we're conscious and that we're here. But what the hell is it? They're even saying now that the neurons are so distributed through the heart and the intestines that the heart's like brain number 2. The intestine, you ever heard this? The intestines.
I've heard heart's brain number 1.
Well, probably brain, because of the amount of neurons. You'll have to go, if you're going down a scientific route, you have to go, where's the most neurons here, you know?
But I heard more fire from the heart to give electricity to the brain.
Yeah, but your stomach is actually, could be even above the second brain, because it's the way it acts independently to the brain, and a lot of your emotions are felt down there. Fear, love, anxiety, it's all felt in the gut because of the amount of neurons down there, you know what I mean?
Hence the listen to your gut.
Exactly. Well, this is what we all have to do. That's more that listen, because it's your subconscious is the most powerful thing that you possess, but sometimes one of the hardest things to access unless you know how it works. And the subconscious works like this, very simply. You pose it a problem, it goes off without any of your knowledge and tries to solve that problem. And when we all experience this, and remind me about creativity. We all experience this is when we're watching a film and we go, oh, who's that bloody actor? I've seen that actor before. What was he in? Forget about it. 2 days later, you're sitting in the toilet and you go, oh, yeah, that's what he was in, right? Because unbeknownst to you, your brain was off going, da, 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 and it was still processing this information. So the subconscious is basically, you got an idea, you pose that idea to your conscious enough, keep posing it, and then the subconscious goes, do you know what? That's what you want. And it goes without any effort from you, and it goes off trying to figure it all out. Like I haven't got any money at the minute. Well, I haven't got a lot of money at the minute. I want to get some new kit. How can I get, what I'm willing to give to get a new kit? Well, I'll make a documentary, right? So the budget will cover the new kit basically, but I'll have all this new kit to do whatever I want, and I'll make the documentary. And I've gone off route. What was I saying?
Well, creativity. You
Yes.
said, remind me about creativity and the subconscious going and doing the homework for you.
So creativity is the same. People say to me, how do you come up with so many ideas? Well, one, I can't answer that first part because that's, if I did believe in a God, I'd go, it just falls into your brain. But how do I construct scripts and ideas and stories? And I go, well, it's as simple as this. I pose to my subconscious, this is what I'm working on at the minute. I'm working on this film about Mandela effect and about simulation theory, double slit experiment. So every time, so I just carry on my life. Every time I see a TV program or that, and it's mentioning the double slit now, I go, okay, I'll watch this, listen to what they're talking about, or I'll watch a film, and it might be a sci-fi film, and I'll go, that little element there I can take and use in my film. So what it is that once you know what you want, and the subconscious mind knows what it wants, it will go away and do all the work for you. It will create your script for you by going, this, you've heard this conversation once, you've seen this, and it all relates. But if you're not doing anything, if you're not creating anything, you're not doing it, that's not going to happen to you. You're going to sit there and wonder how people like me can come up with these amazing ideas for subjects and think it's completely out of my grasp. Well, no.
You read facts and stats, which I can't remember the exact figures, but it's for example, I think I read this like in Stephen Hawking's book, something about the conscious mind can work like a computer at so many bits per second. This that's the conscious mind. The subconscious mind is like 20,000 times faster.
It's unbelievable.
It's so vastly quicker than our conscious mind. Which would serve us all well then to really become friends with our subconscious mind.
Have you ever heard of the hypnagogic state, I think it's called?
I sure have. I've had Anthony Peake on the show, who's an expert on this stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
well, again, it's just something that I realized I was doing it, didn't know what it was called, and I remember I was reading New Sciences America, one of these magazines I was buying on a plane one day, and I was reading it, and they were going, oh, yes, Einstein used it, and Newton used it, and all these great thinkers and philosophers, and I was like, that's what I do. I lie in bed at night time, right, and then I get into the state where I can visualize something, like if I'm doing an edit, I can see the edit, and I go, I put 10 timelines up, and I run the edit with all different changes in my head, and I see it, and I start eliminating these edits, and go, boom, it's that one. And I lock off on that one, I fall asleep, I wake up and I apply it 9.9 times out of 10 is exactly how I envisioned it in my head. But here's the thing about the hypnagogic state. If you realize you're in it, you're out of it. If you realize you're doing it, if you go, oh, I'm in hypnosis. You're out. And
it's like having the gorgeous girl at the bar, but you turn to your mate and go, hey, check this out. Get a picture of this. And you turn around and she's gone.
And she's gone. It's exactly
with
like
another
that.
bloke.
Yeah.
My layman's description of the hypnagogic state.
Yes.
Apparently, Nikola Tesla would see all of his inventions that he was thinking of and brainstorming. They would float in front of him.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
he could turn
That's
them
what I do.
around
That's
as
what I do.
though they were three-dimensional.
Yeah, it's like it's a computer. It's something that I said to myself that I don't use it more. I mean, I even moving to the next process of that is lucid dreaming. I mean, that's something that I've done 5 or 6 times in my life, and I still go, why are you not dedicating your whole life to this? Right. You've got the best virtual reality computer in the world.
Right.
And you can access it and do anything, yet you choose not to.
Right.
And I think that's one of my big things is that I really wish that I was using the hypnagogic state and using, my dream state to further my creativity, to further questions about reality, talk to the people in my unconscious, which is what I've always really wanted to do. What are you doing here? Who are you? Who am I? Because when you're dreaming, all these people you encounter are you. It's like the multiple personality thing, but you have no idea what that person's going to say. You ask them a question, you have no idea how they're going to respond, but that is you. You are God. You create everything that you see, everything you perceive in your dream. Every person you talk to is a part of you.
Right.
And so things that I'd like to discover is going in and speaking to my subconscious people, asking them questions, And so, yeah, I'm really into that. But anyway, but back to the hypnagogic state. For creativity, and anyone can do it. And it's the place where people who meditate want to get to and spend hours unless they just want to clear their brain, but if they're trying to, meditate and think about the nature of the universe or something like that, that's where they're trying to get. But we can all get to it just before we fall asleep. So just for anyone that has missed it, just about at nighttime when you're falling asleep in bed, and say you've had a problem that day or you've creative idea or something, lie there and think about it as you're falling asleep. Eventually, what will start happening is your conscious brain will start slowing down and your subconscious brain will start speeding up and it will start becoming more dominant. And when it becomes more dominant, but you're still awake, you can basically experience a living dream that it's not even a dream. It's like you completely control, like you said, you can see the invention in front of you, and it's like a 3D model that you can move around, but you will very quickly fall asleep. It will last for about 5 or 10 minutes. And then you'll be, because the whole point of it is that you're on the edge of falling asleep. You're quietening down the subconscious mind to a point that now your subconscious mind can take over.
I believe as well, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that this is triggered by the release of DMT from our pineal gland.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So
it's when the DMT gets into your brain, because basically all dreaming is a DMT trip, I believe, from my research. All dreaming, everything is just, you need that chemical in your brain to produce these otherworldly.
Have you ever tried DMT?
I did, but it didn't work for me. I didn't do enough. That was the issue. It was in a vaporizer, and it absolutely stunk and tasted horrible. I was like, oh. And the guy doing it was like, you need to do more. And I was like, you know what? Next time I'll try it. So the problem with me is that I'm going to sound big-headed there. But I said it to the guy, and he agreed with me. Sometimes I think that in a way, I'm going to sound so up my own arse. The way my mind is kind of unique in the way that what I do with it and how I treat my mind, it frightens me that even though everyone says it's perfectly safe and everyone that does it, I just kind of think maybe there's some... It sounds so big-headed.
It doesn't sound big. I mean, I'm terrified of drugs.
It's just because... It's not the drug. It's because I think... I don't know. I'm going to sound so much on my own. I just think because I use my brain differently to nearly everyone else that I meet. When we talk about hypnagogic, I've never met anyone that uses their brain like that. And the way I think about things and the way I look at ideas and the way that I do things, that I just kind of go, if I go in there, they're just going to scramble my whole brain. I don't know. I'm still going to try it then.
But I think that's a valid concern. I think drugs sometimes can have permanent effects on people's brains. So I don't think it's outlandish to have a nervousness about that. I've never tried DMT, but I had an experience in 2012 that was very much made me question the nature of reality. And all of my rabbit hole of research that I went down, DMT came up because it was like a near-death experience, which I've talked about in many of my episodes. And DMT came up and it made me want to try it. But I'm frightened to try it. I'm frightened.
Well, do you know that they talk about the Egyptians, when you look in the pyramids, that a lot of the stories about, dying and going on to the next life, they believe that the royals actually they knew how to extract DMT, and they knew the chemical to counteract it in the stomach. So if you eat something which is laden in DMT, you have a natural chemical in our stomach which deactivates the active compound.
Wow.
And so when you do something like ayahuasca, which is like the drinkable form of it, you have to have the two chemicals in the DMT and the thing that counteracts this chemical.
Right.
Within your stomach, but they go on like 3-day trips. They take the stuff and they are gone like out of it, and they meet their ego, and they meet all these people from like what they say, parallel universes that tell them that reality isn't reality. That's the weird thing about DMT though. But anyway, back to the Egyptians. The Egyptians seems like that they practiced either the hypnagogic state and DMT and releasing DMT in the brain, or they actually took DMT. And the reason why was that everything about their life was getting into the next life. And they practiced lucid dreaming. So the royal family practiced lucid dreaming because what they believed is that at the moment of death, if you could stay lucid, like in a dream, so if you fell asleep and you could keep lucid through your whole dream, everything like that. If you do that when you die, then most people, when they die, they fade away. As they're dying, they fade into their subconscious. Their subconscious fades away and they die. And then that's when people are gone forever. People who survive eternally are the ones that can keep the lucidity going through death. So I suppose if you get your brains blown out, you haven't got enough chance. You're just going to be dead. But if you know that you're dying, and you can keep, and as you're passing, using all the training that you've had from DMT and lucid dreaming, then when you're dead, your subconscious mind carries on. And that's what the Egyptians were talking about with all these tests, about paying someone at the river, doing this, going here, and doing all that. Is that so? When we look at the 3,500 years of what the Egyptians were doing, which was quite literally about moving on to the next life, right? Their biggest thing was all about lucidity at death. So being lucid as you die and not slipping away into the ether.
Isn't also one of the theories of what with the elongated skulls was to make the pineal gland grow bigger.
Yeah. Could be.
Which would make sense that you'd be much more perceptive.
Yeah, because they kind of call it as well. They say that it's the spirit it's not
the spirit molecule.
Molecule, but also say that's what connects us to the spirit world. People say the pineal gland, and a lot of stuff they talk about with the fluoridization of water, because I don't know if you know the fluoride actually calcifies the pineal gland, and obviously stops people from being, in a sense, free thinking and accessing the spiritual side. And I don't know. Maybe that's why I never drink tap water. So maybe that's why we're different. I never liked water as a kid. I love water now, but it's always, bottled, and I make sure there's no fluoride in it. And if I do drink tap water, it has to be filtered. Because, I won't even let my kid... He only drinks water, but I won't let him drink tap water at all. Because it just smells like bleach anyway.
Yeah.
It's just horrible.
And I don't know, how are you for time, by the way? I remember you saying about, speaking of a kid...
I could ring a friend to see if she can pick the kid up.
I don't want to put you into an inconvenience.
No. Do you want to... If I can't get through, I have to go... Are you all right? Pause for a second?
Yeah.
Ring? You got plan. Yeah, the one thing I wanted to say is that we'll go back to the double slit experiment.
Okay.
I mean,
do a recap, because I know there's two little slits, and you've got the particle, the photon, and it can go through as a little particle, a piece of energy, a packet of energy, or it can very cleverly turn itself into a wave.
Have a wave function,
That's
wave
my
function
understanding
of
of
So it's basically, you got an experiment which is at the subatomic, it's not really subatomic, it's at the atomic level, so like with electrons. So you can imagine like a piece of wood, and it's got two slits in it. And then you've got a gun, let's say it's a paintball gun, right? But it's actually an electron gun. And so when you fire paintballs randomly at these two slits, you'd expect the wall behind it the paintballs would either go through one slit or the other slit, and eventually, after a long period of time, you would start seeing two slits of paint, right? Because they can only enter this slit or that slit, and then you get like an impression of two bits of paint on the back of the wall. That's what happens when we put a detector in this experiment. So they put a detector and go, right, we want to see which way, when we fire these electrons, which slits are going through. When we put a detector there, we get two slits. It's what we'd expect, yeah? So it's what you'd expect if you fired a paintball gun at the same experiment, you see two slits. When we do it with electrons, when you put the detector there, we get exactly what we expect, right? Two lines on the back wall, on the receiver. When we take away the detector, we get an interference pattern, right? And an interference pattern is like a wave function. So it's almost like we sent water through there, right? And so basically, it goes through, so it's like it went through, caused a wave, and now what you get is an interference pattern, which is like lots of lines at different intensity of the lines. And that's where the crests of the waves that have come through are hitting, right? The back wall.
Yes, I forgot the important part of this, which was the observer.
The observer, yes. So basically what they've done is to look at that and they go, wait a minute. So very simple. When we put a detector there, it does what we expect it to do. When we remove the detector, it's like the electron exists everywhere. It's like if they're all going, it's hitting the wall here, going through there, going through and so much is going through that it's causing a wave function to happen. Why is that, right?
It's infinite possibility when nobody's watching.
Exactly. So they've got two experiments, and I think they're called the which way experiment, which is the one we just talked about, which is which way did the electron go? And then you've got the delayed choice experiment. And this is where it gets really, really interesting, right? The delayed choice experiment is they went, all right, fair enough, right? So we put the detector in front of the slit. So the electron detector, I know you can't see this, but electron detector goes past the detector, decides which slit to go through, and then hits the back wall or whatever. So they went, all right then, so we'll put the detector on the other side over here, right? The delayed choice experiment.
Like a voyeur, like a peeping Tom on the other side.
We'll go, all right now. So basically the electron would have to make a decision here. It'd have to make a decision on which slot it's going to go through, yeah? Right here, right there on this side. So they thought, we'll catch it out. So if we put it on this side over here, right, we're going to know, right? So they put the detector on the other side, right? They get two slits. They remove it, right? And they get an interference pattern. And they're like, what? The only logical explanation is that the electron, right, going through realizes that it's been caught now. It goes, I've been seen, travels back in time to the emitter, changes its path, and comes back out again the right way.
There's another possible, to me, is that the electron is connected to all other particles in the universe and therefore knows in advance that it's going to be observed on the other side.
Yeah. Again, but it all comes down to the fact that it's to do with time. It's to do with, there is some element of time travel happening here. Either it saw the future, which is time travel.
Or connected energy.
Or but if you see something happening in the future that hasn't happened yet, that's a form of time travel.
But if you're connected,
with the mind,
it could happen in the same time. If you are connected energetically to that detector.
All time exists right now anyway. All the past, present, future, I believe anyway, exists right now. We're just accessing a frequency. So I think we just take it to that element there. But anyway, what's very, very interesting about this whole experiment while we're going on about it is that when you talk about the simulation theory, which we haven't got enough time to go into, but what is great about it is that it goes like a computer game, right? So we think about this, we go, all right, then, so what's happening? So we see something, we put the detector, it does what we expect. We take the detector away, it's like it goes, it's like it superpositions. It goes, it exists everywhere.
It can be anywhere.
Anywhere, right? I'm just waiting. Is someone coming along? I'm going to go back into reality. Right. So how do computer games work? Computer games work, if we're in this room, it generates this room. The room that we're not in, it doesn't generate.
Until we're in it.
Until we open the door and we observe it. Right. Then it generates, right? And it looks like this is what the double slit experiment is showing is that the universe either acts like a computer or is in itself a computer.
I mean, Elon Musk, who Tesla, I guess is his big company, he said it was one in billions of chance that we are not living in a holographic universe.
The numbers become silly because there can only be one reality. And even right now, and if we call this reality right now, we have created hundreds of thousands of simulations and computer games and simulating the universe from 14 billion years ago to present day. We're running simulations on the biggest, most powerful computers in the world, and they're called ancestor simulations. Wow. They are the origins of the universe. I mean, it gets very complicated. As soon as you start getting like complex life starting on the planet, then these simulations get very difficult. But the simulations, I mean, they're difficult. They have to be running massive supercomputers. But yeah, it's all. It's either the thing I've got to. It's either the universe acts exactly like a computer, which means that all electrons could be copies of each other, or there could just be one electron, which is just being copied out everywhere, shared everywhere. That's why that when someone's not looking at something, it just collapses and disappears and shares that energy over here. I don't know if you've heard the big electron theory, but all electrons look exactly the same. They all have the same mass. They're identical in every single way. And so like a computer program, you would have clones of these things rather than copying them, so you'd have one main one, and all the information that forms every electron would reach back to this one main electron and get all its size, its mass, its everything.
Like holographic.
Yeah, so the data is held here, but this electron references back to the main electron, right, to get its data. So which means that now this electron here takes up less information. Right, because it receives its data from one main electron, and just like a computer, that's the most abundant thing in the universe is electrons. Right, so the one, and then they're all identical, and they all disappear and reappear, and they do strange things. But yeah, to me, it seems like we are either in a simulation, and the fact that there's only one reality, and we've already built we've already built hundreds of thousands of simulations that even if the idea comes to our head, we have to go that the possibility that we're in reality is so slim.
Right.
It's unreal. It's a very slim possibility. But there is another guy who basically goes on and says that there's only three possibilities, and I can't remember what they are, but one of them is not even a possibility. But one of them, he just basically says that we get to the point where we can develop this technology, and we just don't. But we've already gone past that. We're already developing ancestor simulations and simulations of the universe. So we know we're not going to do that. And the other one is that they say that no civilization can get, because again, it's not just us. If an alien civilization created this technology, then we're still a massive figure that we are inside their technology and not inside our own, you know? Right. And so the humans will never, ever get to the point where they can create accurate ancestor simulations. And so it will never, ever happen, right? And they're the or it's happening. And that's the three possibilities. Yeah.
I know when I had Anthony Peake on the show, who's very expert in these matters. He's expert in near-death experience and the holographic principles. He's very well studied and well researched. And, you know, the way he expresses it is, look where our technology is now. We've only had computers really in the timeline of civilization. It's a blip. It's a blip, right? Look how long we've had the wheel compared to how long we've had a computer, you know. So if you move into the future, it's so plausible that we would be running these ancestor simulations, and that they would be, and that and also the time travel could have been figured out. And what if it's actually us, you and me, in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Operating a game, and we're just the avatars way back in time
100%.
of you and me in 1,000 years.
Yeah. But you know what? Possibilities like that, and again, like I said to you before, I love stuff which is on the fringe, which is on the, it's not complete and utter rubbish. It could be plausible. Yeah. And that's one of those things that it could 100% be that, you know? And we just don't know, you know?
Right.
And that's the things that really get my brain going, really get me going, this is cool, because not a lot of people know about it. It's like mind magic. You kind of, like, again, go back to words. You tell people stuff with your words and they go, oh my God, well, I've never even thought of that. And that's going back to your very first question. What gets you into this?
Yeah.
You know, what gets me into this is that. It's the magic of showing people stuff that they've never even thought about before. You know?
Well, here's something that popped into my mind from my experience. You saying about words is, when this happened to me, I was speaking scientific information. And the first line was, everything is an illusion. It is all our perception of an infinite range of frequencies and vibrations. Well, information kept coming to me like little downloads for several days. And one of them came middle of the night, and I would write them down. I can't take credit for them. They just popped into my head. One of them, that words and the alphabet and symbols are more powerful than we could ever realize.
Yes, they are.
And I had this extreme heightened awareness for a long time after the experience. I've still got it a little bit, but it was magnified dramatically after the experience. Words would pop out to me, and I would get like a smack in the gut saying, pay attention.
Yes.
This is important. And a lot of the words involve sound.
Yes.
Well, what sound? Sounds, frequencies, and vibrations.
Yeah.
We go like this. Is it sound? Well, where did that come from? Well, why are our ancestors walking around and somebody said it first? They knocked on a solid surface and went, is this sound?
Yeah.
Well, what's going on? Did they understand that it actually was sound?
Yeah.
Did they have better hearing than us?
Yeah.
That they could hear a frequency and go, oh, is this sound? What kind of sound is that? Oh, it's that kind of frequency sound. And we say things about our physical bodies. Oh, it struck a chord.
Yes.
It hit a wrong note.
Yeah.
You know, I got a bad vibe.
Yeah.
All of this, so many details. We leak clues, I think, of knowledge that we are no longer consciously aware of, but that at some point we had.
Language controls everything. Language controls your reality. And we've proven this through experiment to do with that there's tribes in Brazil that have 30 words for the color orange, but only 1-2 words for the color blue. And so, and the thing is, the experiments that they've done, I'm trying not to go too much off track, is that they show this tribe, like, again, I might have the colors wrong, but they show them like orange, right? And they say that one of these bricks is off color. Now, we as Westerners, we look at that and we go, what the hell? I can't see it. And then they just go, boop. They bring the next picture up, boop. And you go, they've got superpowers. They're just spotting the off color orange, right? But then they do it, say, with the blue, right? And we can see the really dark blue one, right? And it's all, and they're sitting there going, they can't, and as a Westerner, you're going, it's that one, it's that dark blue one right there. But what they've shown is they didn't assign a word for dark blue. So they have no perception of blue. Like, what you must understand is that we call robin redbreasts, but they're orange breasts, right? Because before oranges came along, we had no word for the word orange, right? So we called it red. So it is possible to think that people back in the old days, when they looked at robin redbreast, actually saw a red breast. Some of them, like artists, some people who painted and people who work with color would notice there was a difference. But there is an idea to say that they looked at robin redbreasts, and not just because they didn't have a word for it, they saw red. Because, like this experiment is showing, the more words and descriptive words you give to certain shades of color, right, the more you can identify them. So, i.e., we're not saying that people can't identify color. What they're saying is if you're an artist, you actively see the world in a different way because you understand color and color temperature and the way colors meld more. So you see the world in a different way just because you've assigned words to real things.
Well, you're talking my language now. That's what I've done since I was a kid. I've been a painter. It's how I've made most of my livelihood, you know, in partnership with entertainment, but I've been a painter. And I was going to say an important element with what you just said about the robin is color, much as anything in life, is also dependent on what is surrounding it for how you perceive it.
Yes.
So if you put the color red on a black background, you're
Yes.
going to perceive it differently than if you put it against a royal blue
Yes,
background.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
So the robin and his red breast set against his grey browny feathers might also look differently than if he was a blackbird with a red breast.
Exactly. Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Well, he doesn't. And robins have orange breasts. And that's the thing. We had no word for it back then. So
This
they called it-
interview's over.
they had no word for orange until oranges came over, and someone went, "That's an orange,"
Wow.
and someone went, "Wait a minute, that's a bit like that."
I got a
Wait a
budgie in
minute.
my garden with that.
We've got a name for this colour now. But the point I was trying to get to, you can watch this online. I'll send you a link. But it is fascinating to watch these people, and because they've got so few words for blue, if any, they were saying that when they look up at the sky, when it's a blue sky, they'd probably see black. They probably see black. They don't see a blue sky. They see a black sky. And at nighttime, they see a blue sky or whatever. It is fascinating. It was on the BBC. It was on like mainstream news.
Well, then it must be true.
Well, the thing is that we always said this, how do we know that the colours, how do we know that I'm looking at that orange, but that could be your blue?
Right.
But
Well,
because
we
you were
don't
told
know
you
that.
don't know.
No.
But now we know that is true. That if I convinced you your whole life that was blue, you would perceive that
Right.
as blue.
That's
we don't
right.
know if you're seeing blue. You might be seeing my orange, but you will always describe it as blue.
I guess you'd be able to find out. So you're pointing at orange now for listeners on the orange in a glass. But let's say you told me it was blue. Then I would look up at the sky and we'd have a big argument.
Yes.
Because I'd be going, that's orange. And you'd go, you're so stupid.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the point I'm trying to make is that, I think language controls your reality, and the more knowledge you have, the more of reality that you see and you perceive. The less knowledge you have, the less words you know, because words are literally magic. Words are what decide your reality. And what I mean by that is if you're reading a book or watching TV and you don't understand half the words that have been said to you, what reality are you in? What assumptions are you making when you're watching this person and you don't understand the big words? You don't understand what they're saying. You don't understand intonation. You don't understand, I don't know, someone trying to be funny, and you're not getting the nuances of what that person's saying. And again, like what we're talking about, that sometimes with these political activists, just going absolutely crazy because they're not understanding what's, the nuances of the language and of what's happening, and I think that's language controls your reality. Knowledge controls your reality. The less language you have, the less knowledge you have. I'm sorry, who was it used to say about Pim golf ball size reality? The director.
I know David Lynch. Yeah.
And that's 100% right. If you look at the world, through a golf ball, like a tiny little hole, you're only going to have a golf ball size reality. You need to look at the world, and have you need to learn everything, You need to go out there and learn as much as you can and educate yourself. And then your reality and things like come right back into the film that I made. As soon as you know this and you believe it and you see it happening, well, you believe it because it's logical. I mean, it's logic. I used to drive in my car and I used to see the police behind me like everybody and completely innocent. And I'd be like, oh God, don't pull me over. Oh God. Now I see police in my car and I'm like, please pull me over. I kid you not. Because every time I've been pulled over, I've smacked a bum. I've just smacked a bum and sent them on their way. They've absolutely crapped themselves. And I can go through all the stories, but every single time. And it's just by using my words, by knowing that they do not. So a simple one is this, right? Section 163, the Road Traffic Act, allows a police officer in uniform to pull over any car without warrant, right? So what happens is they'll pull you over and they go, and you go, why are you pulling me over? And they go, Section 163. It allows any police officer. You go, okay. And then they go, can you show me your driver's license? And this has happened for real. And I've gone, what, under Section 163? And they're going, yes. I'm going, are you sure about that? And they're going, yes. And you go, I go, it's gross misconduct if you try and tell me. And he said, don't start with that. I said, no, I'm trying to tell you. If you tell me that you think you can see my license under Section 163 of the Road Traffic Act, I'm just letting you know it's being filmed and that's gross misconduct. All right. So I get my phone up and I go, Section 164 of the Road Traffic Act. And I hold it up and I go, Section 164 allows you to see my driver's license. Section 163 only allows you to see, to stop a vehicle without warrant. Now, what you've just done is gross misconduct. You have lied to me. You told me that an act 163 allows you to see my driver's license. I questioned you on it and you asserted it. You have lied. You've committed gross misconduct. Do you want to carry on? And they go, right, no, it's a gypsy warning this time, give you a warning, and because they know full well. You can't just stand there and say 163, and this is their rule book, this is the thing, allows you to stop a vehicle and see the license. No, 163 allows you to stop a vehicle, 164 allows you to see the license, 165 allows you to see the insurance. And when you know these things, it's easy. It's easy. If you wanted to that day, you want the police officer to go away, you don't want to be hassled, it's easy just to pull these little tricks out. It's easy just to understand this. And to the fact that the police officer probably himself, most of the time, doesn't even know himself. Because you'll go to Hendon, be trained, come out, spend 6 to 7 weeks with someone else who's got all the bad habits, and they'll teach him all the bad habits.
I'm listening to you, and I feel sympathetic to the police officer who would pull you over.
But we're doing this for the police. You know, at the end of the day, and I even put this in a documentary, it's not to belittle the police, it's to help the police. You cannot be dealing with, like, if a debt collector comes to the door and he doesn't matter what paperwork he has in his hand, the police have no right to get involved unless there is a breach of the peace. And the breach of the peace would be the bailiff putting his hand on the person or you putting your hand on the bailiff. And then the police officer's one job is to prevent that breach of peace. Yeah, that is it. He's not there to assist the bailiff. And this is what we're trying to educate them. You're not there to randomly pull cars over like in Nazi Germany and ask to see my ID. That's not your job. And this is what we're trying to educate the police on. And we do it in a nice way, being nice and polite and saying to them, you know, if they get RCO shirty, I'll get RCO shirty back with them. But at the end of the day, we're not in Nazi Germany. We're not in communist China. We are free. We have common law, and we're allowed to go and live our lives without anyone bother. It even says it in the law. You're allowed to just go around and do whatever you want. As long as you're not annoying anyone else, no one has the right to annoy you. And so this way of being able to say, well, the police, when you're dealing with legal things, you must deal with it properly. With bailiffs, you must deal with it properly. And this is what we're trying to do. And we do this by embarrassing them on camera to say, you do not know your job. You do not know what the rules are. And because of this, you're running around causing gross misconduct and you know, all over the place, which you can be done for. So what we're trying to do is get them to do their job properly.
I mean, I guess I do think police have such a difficult job because there's so much grey area as well. Because you say, you know, as long as nobody's being hurt or annoyed, well, let's say you're Mr. Homeowner and you're breaking your back with your 2 and 3 jobs to pay for your house, and some people keep getting drunk every day and sitting on your front lawn or sitting on your wall and being loud and dropping all cigarette butts and beer cans and stuff. It becomes a grey area. Well, the police have got to come and remove those people for you. Yeah,
they have, but they have legislation on their side. Public 5, I'm going to mess this up here. Section 5 Public Disorder Act basically covers all of that. The police turn up, they're sitting on the wall being disorderly. The police now have the right of arrest. They warn them and say, look, move, right? And then they're like that. And if they don't, Section 5 Public Disorder. If they swear at a police officer, Section 5 Public Disorder. There are things, that's what I'm saying, these things are in play.
Right.
So these little grey areas, this is what I found, that these little grey areas are covered.
Right.
And they're covered, it's like, you know, sometimes like an argument against free speech and stuff like that. And they go, but you say, oh, there's no free speech because you can't say hateful things or incite violence, right? And you go, yeah, but we've already got that in law. The law says you can't incite violence and you can't have, you know, hateful speech. That's already there. So, you know, you don't add more stuff onto freedom of speech. Don't add more caveats onto it because we already have these things to cover it. So like your people sitting outside there on your wall, well, one, that's your private property. 2, you have the right to eject them. You have the right to eject them using violence if you want to, because this is you ask them to leave, they're not leaving. Right? Wow. I mean, I used to work in security. So I used to run the Harlequin here in Watford. I was a security manager. And I ran all the security, you know, so we knew exactly what to do and exactly how we do them. We had a removal of implied rights of access, which is what we use on the bailiffs as well, which is really funny, which is any private property. No one has the right to be there, right? But say like your front garden, you have an implied right of access, which is you've got a gate, it's not locked, it doesn't say private property. So from your gate to your front door, there's an implied right of access, right? But you can remove that implied right of access at any point by putting a note up saying private property and that no one from a debt collecting agency or anything like that is allowed past this point. Once you've done that, you've removed the right to even walk on your property. You get what I mean?
Yeah, that sounds like a good thing for everyone to do. Get a sign that says private
just say
property.
Private property. Because again, I remember people used to argue with me and I said, look, you forget I used to work in security. I know we used to use these forms on people. We used to give them to people. The removal of implied right of access. You know, that's we can do it to anybody. On private property, You can do it to anybody.
I mean, it's such a hot and very controversial thing, especially in the United States right now, that with incidents where, you know, very tragic things have happened with police officers and with, you know, civilians in society that have ended up being killed. And the police might argue, well, I thought he was going to pull a gun on me. And it really, that's what I mean by a grey area.
But on that side...
Oh, my gosh. It's
on that side, though, you know, at the end of the day, that a lot of these stories that are coming out of America, and again, I studied all of them, they've pretty much all been lies as well. You know, they've said that the hands up, don't shoot was a lie. It never happened. I mean, in all these cases, I think, is it Michael Brown? That's on the name, I can't remember, but one of them was robbing a shop. They've got video footage of the guy robbing the shop, beating up the shop owner. He then goes outside, and the police officer's out there saying stop, and he goes and he runs and he attacks the police officer, who's beating him up, smashing his head off the floor, trying to grab the police officer's gun. This was all from the witnesses who were there. You know, it said that this is what happened, and then they got into the fight, and then the police officer, he went for the police officer's gun, the police pulled his gun out and shot him. At no point did he put his hands up and say, hands up, don't shoot. It was one witness said, this is what happened. And all the other witnesses said, no, that didn't happen. This is what happened, you know? And so, in nearly all these cases, when you look into them, nearly all of them, it's shocking, but the policeman was always right. And it's weird because what we get on the news is that these policemen are just running out and randomly shooting and killing people. You do a little bit of research and you find that it goes to court, all the witnesses come forward and they get let off. And that makes the people even angrier, the protesters even angrier or whatever, going, it's like, no, there was a judicial process. All the people that were there came with the same story. He was a violent thug who robbed a shop, then came out and attacked a police officer and tried to grab his gun, you know. And it's like, so it's like there is a grey area in America, and the problem is that the police have had to deal with so much crap, so much of being shot on the side of the road, being attacked with knives. I mean, they've got crimes out there we can't even think of in this country. I mean, just imagine a policeman in this country thinking that if he pulls a car over, the guy's going to shoot him, you know, which is common.
Right. And
so it puts all the police on edge. And the only advice I can give to people, and this is, if anyone listening to this, when you come to the police, if the police are in your face and they're determined, don't fight them. Nearly all these cases where people have been abused or shot or killed by the police is because they fight the police. And then they've got a gun hidden in their pocket. And then the police see the gun and think, oh, he's going for his gun. Another case that happened, the guys fighting, punching the police officers, boom, 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 knocking them out. And then they get him to the ground and they see he's got a gun in his belt. And they don't know if he's going to go for it or not. So the police officer jumps up and goes blam, blam, and shoots him on the floor. And it looks awful. It looks terrible. It looks like the police officer's gone black. But this guy has just stood toe-to-toe with two armed coppers, right? They're now on the floor, been knocked out slightly a little bit as well, and now the guy's got a gun. The biggest advice is to anybody, you can watch all these videos, and you can see the ones where people just lie on the floor, put their hands behind their back, nothing happens. The police come over, they put their hands at the car door, you know what I mean? Especially if they've been chased or anything like that. Nearly all the shootings that happen, and I know a lot of them are to do with the black males over in America, but nearly all the shootings that happen because they fight the police.
I mean, I guess, of course, I only recently even became exposed to this because I wasn't in America when it happened, but I just watched The People versus O.J. Simpson, which opens up, and then O.J. Made in America, which it opens up with the Rodney King. And, you know, I don't think anybody would argue, okay, that's not something awful is happening.
Oh, God,
here.
yeah.
But this should not be happening to this man, you know?
No, I mean, the thing is that and again, I only came to these things, I mean, I never used to think this way, but even the Rodney King thing, when examined, yes, it was terrible, but that's exactly how the police were trained to deal with a situation like that. So is that, you know, so what I mean is that we only see the video from when it starts. Boom, when we start, and there's police officers just smashing away. What you don't see is him kicking off and attacking the police officers beforehand. And so, it's still terrible. I'm not going to defend the Rodney. I'm not going to defend these police officers the way they did it. But when you look at facts, he ran from police. He then fought the police. He used his car as a weapon against the police. And then when the police tried to arrest him, he wouldn't go down. He wouldn't stay down. He wouldn't allow himself to be arrested. And so the police actually dealt with him back then. That's how they were trained. They batter the legs, batter the arms, you know, just incapacitate the person. But we look at this video and we go, oh my God, that is crazy. That is absolutely nuts. But I have, probably like you now, I have more sympathy for the police now because I go, they themselves are being shot. They themselves are being attacked. And there is no reason to attack police officers unless you're trying to get away. But if you're attacking police officers and you've got a gun, yeah, and you're fine, if you get shot, I'm sorry, you've done it, you've brought it on yourself. Because every video I watch where a guy puts his hands up, the police go, get down, get on the ground down. They don't get shot, they don't get beat up, they just do it, And every video I see with a kickoff, or not every video, they either get injured or they get shot or, something along those lines. Because the police are quite literally taught in America that if you feel the life's in threat, shoot them, whether they're armed or not. If you're in a fight and he's knocking you out, shoot him. That's how they're trained. And so that training needs to be changed. They took the British over there to try and say, they would show them videos of a guy with this machete and like 5 British police officers would just take him down, no injuries. And they would go, if that happened in anywhere in America, we would have shot him dead. I think the training needs to change in that way, whereas, because they're quite literally trained to shoot to kill. They're not shoot to injure, no. You can be kicked out of the police force if you're showing that you went to shoot them in the leg or in the arm. You have to shoot to kill with a knife, attacking you, anything. I've got friends in the British police and they're now being taught shoot to kill. And DPG, which is the Diplomatic Protection Group and Royal Protection Group, the training exercises as they go on are no injuries. You shoot to kill,
Well, they shot the Westminster terrorist, didn't they?
Sent a mass, yeah.
And I don't think he had a gun. He was stabbing, wasn't he? Yeah. So he had a knife, but not a gun.
And in the throat, yeah.
The thing that I quite don't understand with that sort of situation is, wouldn't you want to keep that terrorist alive to kind of find out maybe if he was working on his own or...
But you just can't. That's the thing is that in a situation like that, you have to, it's harsh, and I understand that, you have to shoot to kill. You can't, if you shoot to injure, you can miss. If you're trying to go for limbs and arms and stuff, you can miss. And you can hit somebody else, Whereas if you're shooting center mass, well, really, they're not shooting in the head. They're shooting from probably about here down to your groin and across like this. This is what we call like the center mass area. So it's like, imagine drawing a cross down the center of your head. Basically, the kill zone in any human being is from the top, middle of your head, all the way down, all the way down here, all the way down to your groin, basically. And then from, say, from your left armpit to your right armpit, that's what we call it. It's the kind of the kill area. You shoot anyone anywhere in this area, you're dead, basically, because obviously that's the spine. Oh, well, that's the brain. The brain still here. The spine, the all internal organs, the heart and the lungs, and across here. But
very creepy. This.
Well, I was in the TA, so I kind of it's a turtle. We kind of get taught all this stuff, but yeah, it's very, very creepy. But yeah, I think, I don't know. The training just needs to. In America, I definitely think the police need to be trained better, not to shoot so quickly. Because I've seen so many videos where they just open the back of a car door and the guy's going, put your hands up. Why you put, bam, bam, bam. They just shot him straight.
Right.
Like, within seconds. And you're like, what? And then he's shouting, get out of the car. You've just shot the guy 3 times. And now you're demanding him to get out of the car and lie on the floor. And then they stand there on the radio and not calling for any medical assistance. That's something you never see in the UK. In the UK, they shoot somebody, they're instantly on them, like the Westminster guy. They're instantly on them with medical, trying to save them. But I think, to answer your question, it's very, very difficult because you have to shoot to kill. You can't shoot to injure, you have to shoot to kill. And you don't know, this guy, he was a big guy, I can assume. It was a bodyguard that shot him, so he would have been using a 9mm, not a very powerful weapon. So he would be shooting for the heart, I assume, shooting center mass and trying to do as much damage as he could. I would assume if he was trained, he would have shot him in the heart, and that's why he didn't survive it. He would have done 2 shots, a double tap, like that, and that was what would have killed him. But yeah, there's no way you're keeping that person alive to ask him questions in a situation like that. But again, that question does come. There's only one that with Osama bin Laden. They could have captured. This guy knows everything that's going on all around the terrorist world, but yet their mission was to go in and execute him.
Well, that was
and then chuck him in the sea.
It was kind of very dodgy, I thought, the fact as well that they're showing the photo that circulated with sort of the face blown off. And people are going, that's him.
That's a fake, yeah.
Well, it's like, how do you know that's him? His face is gone, you know?
But they're showing that. You know it's a fake, don't you? They got a dead ISIS or Al-Qaeda soldier, and they took the top part of...
oh, wow. No, I didn't know that.
Head. Yeah, it's a complete fake. Yeah, they took the top part of his head, Bin Laden. God. So all you're seeing is this part of Bin Laden's head, and the rest of it is taken from another... You can actually see the real picture. So you can see them side by side and show that it was a fake. The conspiracy theory is that he died years ago. That he was
sick and ill,
he had kidney.
That he was ill.
He was on dialysis, and people said that even if he had all the best treatment in the world, he would only survive till about 2010 2009 or something like that. When you worked out, if he had transplants and medication and everything, he would have only made it to this year. And that's like, with everything. But all of a sudden, they go out, they find him, and they kill him, and then they chuck him in the sea.
Now that part, got me, the chucking in the sea. I was like, wait a minute.
This is Muslim tradition. And you go to, what's this about Muslims chucking people in the sea? Oh, I've never heard of that in my entire life. The Muslim tradition is get them in the ground as quick as possible.
If you're the world's most wanted criminal, wouldn't you think that it would be very important to make sure people knew that this person had been, assailed and was now...
Yeah, but capture, go back to your question, how much information
does
this guy have?
But it's always the same in these incidents. They're always killed.
And then the Special Forces team, I think over 2/3 of them are dead now. They all died in a helicopter crash just after the event.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so you look at that and you go, and your spider senses start tingling and you're like, what? Yeah, just weird. It's like, this imaginary guy, and then there's that photograph, wasn't there, of Obama and all that lot. And I think was Clinton in there as well? Hillary Clinton, I think, and they're all meant to be in the war room watching the actual thing happening live. And they put it in all the papers saying, this is them watching bin Laden being killed. And then they found out the photograph was like from weeks ago, and it was from something completely different. And they were like, oh, yeah, no, that wasn't us watching bin Laden. That was something completely different. So there's the evidence they bring forward then gets disproven. And then they go, so what were you doing? So just to me, it feels like it got to the end of the whole bin Laden thing. He was already dead. They need a new boogeyman, right? They can't use bin Laden because they can't get any more videos out of him. They can't get anything from him anymore. You kill him off, you create a new... Because as soon as he was dead, we got ISIS. You remember that? It was like they had a baton and they went, all right, it's Bahama's bed. There's the baton, there's ISIS. And so the war on terror is a never-ending war. Like the war on drugs, it's never, ever ending. And how can you have a war on terror anyway? What does war cause? Terror.
Yeah.
You're having a war on war. It's just madness. The war on drugs and the war on terror. And I suppose to wrap up, that gets us to the next documentary, like you said, that I'm going to be doing. So should we go into that now?
And I've got 8% battery left.
Okay,
now, I can always plug in, but I know you have to wrap up anyway.
I have to wrap up anyway, but yeah, at the moment I'm working on a documentary called The God Plant. There's a website up at the moment called thegodplant.com. Yeah, it's thegodplant.com, and there's a video on there, like a little promo that we've put together. And again, this is another documentary that I'm in because, one, I am a weed smoker. I won't deny it. I haven't drunk alcohol in 15 years now. I don't do any other drugs. Weed is my thing. Mm-hmm. And through my whole life, people told me, I'll make you stupid, I'll make you this, I'll make you that, make you dumb, make you dopey, make you less ambitious. But I saw the complete opposite. And I've always seen the complete opposite. I've seen that all my friends that gave weed up at around about their 30s and instead elected for booze, they've given up on everything. They only go in and do their jobs. I find that with me, I was getting smarter. That was the one thing. I was like, I'm getting smarter. And I can only attribute this to one thing. When I work on a script or something creative, if I've been smoking, it just flows. Do you know what I mean? And so there was that aspect of it. But also, I knew that there was all this medical side of it, like with Parkinson's and epilepsy. Right. And this is where it gets mental. Our first interview that we did a couple of weeks ago is a guy who's got full-on Parkinson's disease. You can't see him, but he shakes uncontrollably. His name is Ian Frizzell. He's had a video up on Facebook that's had 50 million views on Facebook, yeah. And so basically, he's also got what's called deep brain stimulation. So he can turn off his tremors by pressing a button because he's had a probe put into his brain. But for 5 years, he medicated. He controlled his tremors with cannabis. Wow! So much so that I think the woman. I think they're married now. I might be wrong. Sorry if you're not married. But for 5 years, she didn't know. She didn't know because he had Parkinson's, right? I mean, when I say he's got Parkinson's. Like shaking uncontrollably, yeah. He was controlling it for 5 years with cannabis, and the first time she found out was when they went to hospital. Well, she knew he had Parkinson's, but she didn't know how bad it was. He went to hospital. He obviously didn't smoke, and so it started developing.
Gosh.
It started to, and Parkinson's is a when you stand still. That's when you're.
Oh, I thought you meant she didn't know he was taking cannabis, not that she didn't know.
No, she didn't know the effect. She didn't know the effects of.
Okay.
She knew he had Parkinson's. I think she knew he smoked cannabis to control it, but she didn't know
how much shaking was involved.
Right. And so we go and film this guy and we film him doing it, and you just are gobsmacked. You're like, what? You can stop all this horribleness within minutes.
Wow.
So in the video, what you will see is the people with Parkinson's, but you'll also see which affects, and I'm sorry, I would say about 90% of people that watch the video cry. I didn't mean it that way. It's because we've got lots of children in there with these things called myoclonic seizures. And what it is that there's no cure for this. And from about the age of 1, they develop these seizures where they can have up to 500 a day. And you'll see it in the video.
Oh, my God.
500 a day. And so it arrests their brain development. So they don't develop anymore. And there's this one guy in the story where his child is like 6 or 7 years old, up to 500 seizures a day. It's on 25 different medications, like really strong pharmaceuticals that do nothing. He gets to the end of his tether, goes out, buys cannabis oil, puts it on the child's mouth here, and for the first time in 5 years, not one seizure.
Oh my gosh.
2 weeks go by, one seizure in 2 weeks.
Wow.
From 500
my
day.
God.
A day. And so we put this in the document. You see that there's one kid, he's fitting, and the mum's got like a deodorant roller, you know, underarm roller full of cannabis oil.
Wow.
And she rolls it onto his feet, and she goes, okay, like that. And within seconds,
it stops.
And you see the kid going, and another girl that's really far gone, and she's on the edge of death with this fit, you know, and they give her the cannabis oil to stop the fit, but then they have to give her oxygen. But then within seconds, she's sitting up, hungry, wanting something to eat, you know. And I was like, you know, and these things, and so if you can look us up online, if you don't believe me, type in THC brain cell growth.
Okay.
40 to 60% in brain cell growth in rats. Yeah, it's nuts, isn't it? Yeah?
Wow.
And they've also found that that there's this glue that's in the brain that glues all the brain together, neurons. And as you get older, this glue deteriorates. Yeah, and this stops the process. This stops you thinking fast. Yeah.
Oh.
So it's basically like the lubricant in the brain. And they found that THC basically increases that lubricant. So like if you've got Alzheimer's, it's that goo which is defective. And so you can't access memories and you can't think properly and, you know, because this glue is dissipating. Cannabis reinforces this glue. And so it helps people with Alzheimer's to regain their memories back. Because they haven't lost their memories. It's just the process. You can't get to them.
They've lost the keys to the door.
They've lost the keys to the door. And then you've got the big C, the cancer. Again, I might be wrong because I'm still just making a documentary at the moment on the actual minutiae of all this. But what happens is that cancer cells are larger than normal cells. And so when THC is introduced, or CBD or something like that, I think it's the THC, it overwhelms the receptors on the cancer cell. And so not deliberately, it just obviously goes, I want a receptor, I want to go to a receptor, you know, like that. And the cancer cell thinks it's under attack. And so it self-destructs. It goes, I'm under attack. I don't want to affect the other cancer cells, so I'll shut down.
Wow.
So THC has the effect on cancer of causing it to commit suicide.
I was going to say, or it sounds like some sort of, I don't know, kamikaze thing to save face. Oh, I'm under attack. It's just self-destruct. I don't want someone to see me fail.
Well, yeah,
you know?
and to the point where in America, there are people producing cannabis oil, and they have saved. I mean, this isn't even, when I used to first look at it, I was like, yeah, Bill. And you look at, they've gone to court and they've proved it in court with physicians. Physicians have said, I looked at this guy, he had all this on his chest, he had 2 weeks to live, and now it's 2 years later. And the only thing he did different was take cannabis oil. Wow. The only thing he did different was take cannabis oil. So my new documentary is called The God Plant. It's going to be about the medical benefits of cannabis. We've already been to the House of Lords and interviewed Baroness Meacher, or Lady Meacher, I think you call her. We've interviewed Ian Frizzell. Frizzell. Sorry, I might get that wrong. The Parkinson's sufferer. We're going to be interviewing Professor, I think his name's Professor Barnes. Sorry if I got that wrong. And he wrote The Science of the APPG, which is the all-party. God, my brain's dying now. But it's a report.
Is that cannabis?
It's a report. Yeah, it's a report that was sent to the APPG, was the all-party. God, it's too much weed, everybody. But basically, it was the report that was taken to the Houses of Parliament, and he wrote the science behind it. He did all the research and the science. And then we're going to LA, like I said, and Colorado, and then circling back to the UK to do some of these cannabis meetups that they're having and stuff like that. But it would be very heavily surrounding the medical side of cannabis. So.
And when do you expect the film to be out?
Hopefully we finish in July, and then it's just down to distributors, and depending what we're doing. Again, like the industry, we can finish the film, but it can take months because of distributors working out fees and where it's going to fit in. If we've got to take it to places and things like MIPCOM or something like that, which is in October, I think. So even if we finish it in July, they might go, well, we're going to save it for MIPCOM and Cannes and stuff like that. So hopefully July, and if everything goes well, just soon after that, So we might do a shorter version online, maybe a half an hour, 40-minute version so that people can see. And then there'll be like a 2-hour version.
Maybe we will catch up with you in Los Angeles.
Maybe. Yeah, we should do, actually. Yeah.
Because this has been incredibly mind-stimulating. I'm not even on a drug, but my brain is still exploding.
I'm not on drugs at the moment. It's an evening thing for me, not a day thing.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out. I mean, this really has been fun. We've talked about a lot. We've talked about so much. People are going to need to take drugs just to listen to this.
Well, we're going to be like, wait a minute, I thought we were going to listen to a podcast about the law and the legal system.
Right.
No, we're talking about the double slit experiment, the nature of reality. What happened here?
We've gone from a Strawman to multiple universes.
Joe Rogan, eat your heart out. I think Natalie's coming to get you.
Well, thank you. Now, do you go by a John Webster or John K Webster?
For all my media stuff, John K Webster.
Okay.
So for just me, John Webster. But the K is to differentiate me because there's the writer John Webster, who the Shakespearean writer, and there's another director out there who's called John Webster. So I put the K, which is my middle name, Kerr.
And the best place for people to see your work? What is your actual? Is it a Vimeo or your personal website or a Facebook? What's the best place for people to keep up and check out what you're up to?
Do you know what? I'm terrible like that. I do have a website, but it's more of a company website. Just the films, I suppose.
I'll put the links.
So you've got Strawman the Nature of the Cage, and you've got Resonance at the moment, Beings of Frequency. You could go into patientzeroproductions.com. There's other bits and bobs on there, but most of my work I kind of keep to keep it. I don't have a central hub at the moment. Do you know
I'll
what
make
I mean?
sure I put all applicable links.
I need to read, don't I? I mean, this is terrible. I don't have central hub.
I have to say, you're the first one ever. We've literally blasted through a MacBook Pro battery. So if ever there was a reason for you to light up,
there was a reason to carry on in LA. We've got another
celebrate. Yes,
another 3.5 hours.
Yeah. So on 2%, I shall officially say thank you so much,
No
John
worries.
Webster. Thank you again to John K. Webster. There you go, guys. That's a wrap on the episode. Thanks for hanging in there. This, I believe, is the longest episode that I have posted. This is episode number 50. So it's a little bit of a commemorative episode. Thank you guys, as always, for listening. If you happen to be an iTunes user, I would be massively grateful if you could take a moment to give a rating and review of the show. It would mean a lot to me. You'll earn karmic bonus points. Maybe. Who knows? But at least you'll make me happy. So that's it. Check out thegreyescape.com for other episodes. The show's kind of everywhere now. It's on Google Play, it's on iTunes, it's on all those kind of apps you can get for your smartphone. There's no excuse not to be listening. All right. Take care, everybody. And I can't wait to be back soon right here on The Grey Escape.